It all begins in a different world, showing a village in the middle of a massive plain. At that moment, a goblin sneaks around holding a sharp knife. He walks past several fallen henchmen along the way, showing that the situation there has already been handled. Getting closer to a cave, you can hear someone inside telling a girl to keep quiet before she loses her teeth. The goblin approaches the hideout's entrance, observing what is happening inside. Evaluating the situation, he pauses for a moment, just analyzing the scene. With an idea in mind, he seems very confident about what he is going to do. Inside, a girl named Jiang Heian is tied up and completely terrified. One of the henchmen checks her ID, reading her name and soul address out loud, looking impressed. The other guys around start laughing, realizing that the hostage used to live in a really fancy place. The group's leader tries to calm things down, asking her to listen closely to what he has to say. Explaining things cynically, he says he understands her shock at being taken from a normal life and thrown into a different world out of nowhere. He keeps mocking her, saying that now they are in a place full of elves, orcs, and magic, while his partners laugh, saying he sounds like a telemarketer. Showing who is in charge, the bad guy reveals that they also came from the same place, but arrived earlier and have already settled in. Getting his face closer, he warns that Heian will really need their help and asks if she wants to know why. Grabbing her boyfriend by the hair, the leader threatens her, saying that if she does not cooperate, she will end up ruined just like him. Seeing that horrible scene, Heian goes into total panic. Unable to handle the psychological pressure, she ends up passing out right there. The henchman gets annoyed that she blacked out, while his partner insists that acting aggressively would solve the problem. But one of their buddies steps in, calling the guy a lunatic and warning him not to mess up her face since she is the first pretty girl they have found. He points out that they need to take it easy exactly, because she is the prettiest summoned person who has shown up recently. Agreeing, the leader says they need to wake the hostage up soon, because they will not be able to carry her all the way to the base. Suddenly, a voice echoes from the back of the cave complaining that this scene is way too disgusting to watch, grabbing everyone's attention. The criminals are confused and annoyed, demanding to know who started talking nonsense out of nowhere. Thinking it was his own big guy partner, the leader yells at him, asking if he has lost his mind. However, the big guy stays silent, just feeling the impact of the attack. His body collapses to the ground completely motionless, revealing he was hit right in the back. The other two fall into total despair, not understanding what just happened. At that moment, the goblin readies his weapon and comments that those thugs seem to be having a lot of fun. The bad guys stare at the creature, completely frozen in the face of that threat. With a mocking tone, the goblin suggests they play a different game now. Cursing at the creature, the bad guys get ready for a fight, but the invader quickly throws something. The strike hits the target perfectly in a very sensitive spot, leaving the partner scared of the attack's precision. Full of anger, the bad guy tells them to finish the goblin off quickly since he is small, while Heian slowly starts to wake up confused. Opening her eyes slowly, the girl is still dazed through her tears. Charging at the invader, the criminals attack without a second thought. Keeping his cool, the goblin just grips his knife firmly. One of the guys tries to land a strike, yelling with all his might. Taking advantage of the enemy's slow speed, the creature dodges the attack with extreme ease. Giving no chance to defend, the goblin strikes back with an incredibly fast move. The counterattack hits the bad guy precisely and relentlessly. Howling in pain, the criminal falls to his knees on the ground, completely neutralized. Already focusing on the next target, the goblin appears behind the other henchman, leaving the guy in shock. The last bad guy standing freezes, unable to believe how easily his partner was defeated. Watching everything while tied up, Heian can barely process what is happening there. Charging at the last opponent, the goblin mocks him, asking if they were not going to keep playing. Desperate, the bad guy starts swinging his sword everywhere, telling the monster to stay away. In absolute panic, he raises his weapon while screaming. With an agile leap, the small invader attacks from top to bottom. The impact is so strong that it knocks the wind right out of the criminal. Unable to hold his ground, the man is thrown backward by the force of the strike. He falls awkwardly on the dirt floor, very close to where Heian is tied up. The girl keeps panting, terrified by how intense the situation got. Crawling backward, the bad guy begs the creature not to get any closer. Trying to save his own skin, he tries to be friendly, offers food, and uses the fact that the monster speaks the human language to try and negotiate. Ignoring the nonsense, the goblin raises his weapon to put an end to it, while the guy begs to know what he wants. Showing zero pity, the invader finishes the confrontation once and for all. The criminal is left sprawled on the ground, in no condition to cause any more trouble. Sitting on the defeated target, the small warrior sighs in relief, commenting that this was exhausting. At this moment, something in the environment catches his eye. Trembling with fear, Heian stays huddled in the ropes, expecting the worst. The goblin looks back, noticing that the prisoner is still in the same spot. Holding his weapon firmly, he starts walking toward the girl. Staring at the young woman, he just states out loud that she did not run away. Gathering a drop of courage, Haein tries to get his attention. Noticing the way he acts, she asks hopefully if the creature is also Korean. Turning his back, he mocks the question, asking if he looks anything like a human. Completely shaken, she insists that he knows the language, recognized her ID, and even took her out of that gang's hands. Cutting the small talk, the goblin warns her dryly that he did not do that to save anyone. Totally desperate, the young woman begs him to explain the situation, because she does not understand anything that is going on. Pointing to the ground, he asks if she was not paying attention to what the criminals were saying earlier. Straight to the point, he explains that they had a normal life, were thrown into this bizarre world overnight, and now they are completely doomed. Unable to properly process the idea of another world, Haein breaks down and begs to hear something that makes sense. Hearing her despair, the small warrior shows a lot of confidence in the situation. Getting his face closer, he claims she should be able to see the truth by now, leaving the girl confused. Breaking the silence, the warrior asks if the girl can see a quest window in front of her and what the system is offering. Completely in shock, the young woman just lets her tears fall, unable to process the question. Right then, a glowing blue holographic panel appears in front of her, leaving the hostage even more confused by it all. Giving a half smile, the small invader notes that she can also see the system, and advises the girl to do whatever nonsense the quest demands to try and adapt. Turning his back to leave, he tells her coldly to move on and fight for her own survival. Desperate about the situation, the young woman throws herself on the ground and grabs his leg, begging for more explanations since she understands absolutely nothing. Feeling the tug, the monster looks back with an expression of pure annoyance. Having zero patience, he grabs the girl's shirt and pulls her up roughly, making her let out a scream of terror. To make matters worse, he points his dirty combat knife right at her chest. Calling the girl an idiot, the warrior claims he is the most dangerous creature in that place and asks what else she could possibly want from him. Making his intentions very clear, he warns that from this moment on, he will put an end to every human who crosses his path, and that he is only sparing her out of a mere whim. In tears, the young woman questions the reason for so much cruelty, since he was more than capable of helping her group. Hearing those exact words, the goblin freezes instantly, completely taken by surprise. His mind travels straight to a painful memory in the middle of a camp destroyed by the rain, where a human soldier held a fallen comrade, claiming that this was wrong. Pressing her body against his, the soldier cries desperately, begging for help. Completely devastated by the loss, the young man hugs his comrade, not knowing what to do. Then heavy armored footsteps echo on the soaked ground, approaching him in the rain. The soldier looks up, paying attention to the imposing figure that stopped right in front of him. A warrior in silver armor looks down at him, showing the difference in power between the two. That was the famous sacred sword Ha-Yuri, who showed a cold posture toward the tragedy. Overcome with grief, the young man reminds her that she had promised to help the group survive in that hostile world. Screaming at the top of his lungs, he demands to know the reason for such a betrayal, since she could easily have saved everyone. Showing no remorse, the commander states that she is sorry, but the mission was completed perfectly, and this was just a noble sacrifice. Drawing her weapon, she decrees that the soldier will meet his end as a traitor for attacking his own allies. Outraged, he tries to justify himself, saying her men attacked his comrade first and he only tried to stop it, reminding her that the woman was carrying his child. At that exact moment, a cowardly attack strikes the young man's neck from behind, catching him completely off guard. Watching the soldier collapse to the ground, the commander simply tells the traitor to stay quiet. Fallen in the cold mud, he feels his life draining away while the words "noble sacrifice" and "betrayal" hammer in his mind. Coughing uncontrollably, the young man concludes that all that promise of help was nothing but a huge lie. With his face taken over by an uncontrollable fury, he curses those disgusting humans, swearing he would get revenge on every single one of them. Feeding a deep hatred in his final seconds, the soldier wishes he had the strength to tear them all apart with his own hands, willing to pay any price for it. Back in the present, the goblin stares at the girl huddled on the ground, still processing the memories. Deciding to answer her question, he agrees to explain the reason behind his actions. Yelling at the top of his lungs, he confesses that he hates humans to the extreme precisely because he no longer belongs to that race. With a threatening look, he decrees that now he is just a green skin. Traumatic memories flash in his mind again, recalling the empty apology about the noble sacrifice. The image of the commander sentencing his downfall for treason resurfaces like a ghost. The echo of his own despair trying to explain that he only wanted to protect his family comes back to haunt him. The leader's coldness telling him to shut up while the fatal blow was delivered repeats in his head. The terrible feeling of falling face first into the mud, without being able to do anything, consumes his thoughts. All that humiliation of being called a traitor after losing everything he loved becomes fuel for his anger. The feeling of disgust for human lies ignites the grudge in his chest even more. The primal desire for revenge and destruction against those who betrayed him becomes his sole purpose. Like in a mystical rebirth, a single drop falls into a dark pool of water, marking the end of his human life. Breaking the surface of the water with a beastly roar under the rain, the warrior is reborn into a monstrous body. Gasping for air with difficulty, the creature pants in the freezing water, not understanding how he is still alive. The first thought that invades his mind is to desperately search for his lost partner. Standing up in the shallow puddle, he looks around completely disoriented by the dark environment. Right below his feet, a huge glowing magic circle reveals that this was a summoning. Realizing the gravity of the situation, he just mutters an indignant curse word. Staring at his own hands with sharp nails, the warrior is terrified to see that his body has transformed into something completely bizarre. From the shadows, a mystical figure with horns and a staff starts chanting words in an unknown language, announcing that the human blood has passed away. Startled by the sudden voice, he turns his face quickly to figure out who is there. The mysterious being introduces himself wearing a skull on his head, revealing to be Morkzul, the shaman of the warriors. Pointing the tip of his glowing staff at the newborn, the shaman decides to grant an official name to the new tribe member. With great reverence, the entity decrees that his name will now be Nazar. However, a higher will imposes a different destiny, and the name Gorals echoes as his true identity. Touching his own illuminated chest, the warrior accepts the name Gorals, taking on the position of a great vessel. Skipping forward in time, the scene shows a defeated human thug, while the narration highlights that this lethal strike to weak points is Gorals' trademark. Watching the fight from afar, a goblin archer smiles excitedly, claiming that his relentless way of fighting humans is totally her type. Returning to the present at the camp, the goblin archer tells the rest of the group to wait while she goes to check on their comrade's situation. Walking through the forest with a smile on her face, the warrior seems very relaxed. Sensing her approaching, Gorals turns his head quickly to check who is coming. Turning his attention back to the human hostage, he tells the girl to leave once and for all before he changes his mind and finishes her off. Trembling from head to toe, Heian asks if she cannot just stay by his side, promising to obey any order. Finding that absurd, the warrior asks if she really wants to follow a monster that just wiped out a man right in front of her. In tears, the young woman defends that he is not a monster because he saved her life, pointing out that the other humans were going to do terrible things. Blaming her despair, she cries on her knees saying she has no one else in that world and does not know who she can trust. Flicking her forehead really hard, the goblin calls her naive to try and wake her up to reality. Maintaining a serious posture, he explains that blindly trusting anyone who shows up is the exact reason she ended up in that deplorable situation. Raising his voice, he tries to get it into her head that there is nothing and no one trustworthy in that brutal place. Sighing, he comments that luckily she was the first summoned person in that area, which means there must be several survivor camps nearby. Pointing out a logical way out, he guarantees that these camps will have people much more trustworthy than a monster like him. At that, he reaches out and hands her a small survival knife. Holding the weapon without understanding its purpose, she listens to the warrior's final warning, who states that the time will come when she will have to pay a high price to fit into a group, whether with her own body or with someone else's life. The goblin advises Heian to keep the knife well hidden to use it wisely, assuring that a simple cut would give her a chance to defend herself. To end the conversation right there, he warns her dryly that he will personally take her down if she ever speaks to him again. Seeing her savior walk away, the young woman begs to know his name before saying goodbye. While walking into the darkness, the warrior remembers his own human name but rejects that old identity once and for all. Right after, he looks over his shoulder and proudly introduces himself as Gorals, the great vessel and combat goblin. Sometime later, Gorals quietly searches through a wooden chest inside a dark cave. Then a goblin archer named Meave approaches from behind, curious to know if he let the human escape after promising to hunt down that entire race. Without paying much attention to the question, the small warrior just notes that his clanmate has returned. The girl insists on the subject, complaining that the human took his dagger while she herself never got a gift like that. Explaining his logic, he claims that defeating such a weak target would not give any experience and would just be a pointless annoyance. Meave gets totally excited by the answer, thinking he only wants to face strong enemies and passionately declaring that he is her man. Taking a step forward, the archer asks super curiously if his main target would be that sacred sword user from before. Gorals steps back quickly to get away from the clinginess, clarifying that he does not want to end the warrior just because of her strength. With a very heavy tone, he reveals that his true goal is to eliminate all the people who stole his world from him. Faced with such an intense declaration, the archer freezes, surprised by her partner's dark determination. The goblin's mind goes back to that rainy day, remembering that humans took away his reason to live and everything he wanted to protect the most. Full of resentment, he reinforces that besides losing his family, those traitors also took his life. Walking past his companion, the warrior comments that he does not know why he was reborn like this, but guarantees that nothing else stops him from acting. Startled by the heavy energy in the air, Meave steps back as he reveals he made a blind oath. The archer ends up falling to the ground, totally intimidated by the leader's monstrous presence. A dark aura overflows from Gorl's body, who swears to pay any price to defeat those responsible for all his suffering. The small warrior's eye glows a bright red, overflowing with pure fury and resentment. Consumed by deep hatred, he promises to make the humans pay for every single detail of what they did. To try and break the tense atmosphere, Meave kicks his leg lightly to get his attention. At that, the goblin looks down and realizes he ended up losing control of his own feelings for a moment. Huddled on the ground, his partner confesses she gets terrified when she sees her man that furious. After apologizing for the scare, Gorls changes the subject and tells her to gather the group to collect everything they can offer the shaman. Getting super excited again, the warrior runs outside calling the rest of the clan to get to work as fast as possible. Sometime later, the combat goblin appears standing alone on top of an imposing rock formation. Looking over the vast forest under the cloudy sky, he analyzes the territory, calmly preparing for his next moves. With focused attention, the small warrior closely watches the movement down below in the forest. Nearby, a young human runs desperately through the trees, trying to escape some unseen threat. Using the system itself to his advantage, Gorls projects a glowing blue screen on his palm to check his progress. The quest window shows he needs to defeat 30 humans to evolve, and right now, he is only one target away. He reflects that everything will be much easier once he becomes a full warrior, since his movements have improved a lot in his current form. Suddenly, Meave calls her partner's name from below, interrupting his thoughts. The archer announces that the group has gathered all the useful items in the area and asks what the next step will be. Analyzing the situation, the leader explains that some enemies escaped during the previous ambush, indicating that reinforcements will arrive very soon. Right after, the goblin walks through the shallow waters of the stream and decides to turn that camp into the perfect grave for humans. The sun shines bright in the clear sky, contrasting with the dangerous plan that is about to unfold at the camp. Later, several noises of wood and ropes echo intensely at the entrance of a dark cave. With a firm grip, one of the clan members positions a heavy box on the dirt floor. Wiping the sweat from her forehead, Meave looks very tired after helping set up the trap's entire structure. Gorls gives a quick scolding, telling the archer to handle things carefully, making her apologize right away. Then two other monsters run toward the small warrior, calling him over and over. Full of pride, one of the subordinates announces that all the barricades have been set up perfectly according to the boss's orders. The dark cave tunnel now has a row of well-placed obstacles to slow down any invader who tries to pass through. Despite praising the group's effort, Gorls tries to cut the subject short, stating he is not anyone's leader there. Contradicting him, the lackey insists on the title, revealing he saw the warrior's strength against the humans and fully accepts him in command. Very excited about his own decision, the monster turns to his partner beside him, seeking immediate support for the idea. Right after, everyone starts shouting in unison throughout the hall, accepting the small warrior as the absolute new leader of the tribe. Taking advantage of the festive mood, Meave leans on his shoulder, blushing deeply, stating she also accepts him as her man. In the middle of the celebration, a lookout yells desperately, warning that a large group of humans is approaching the hideout. Drawing his dagger with full confidence, the new boss announces it is time and orders the rest of the group to hide far away. He then turns his face and asks if his trusty archer can lend some initial support in the fight. With her bow ready, Meave guarantees she will shoot all her arrows without hesitation to protect her man. Satisfied with his partner's courage, Gorls announces that the real fun begins right now. Outside, a large troop of armed humans arrives at the ambush site and goes into shock at the devastating scene on the ground. The group's leader holds his giant axe, completely outraged at the idea that a single monster caused all this ridiculous damage. Consumed by fury, the big guy grabs one of his own men by the collar, asking if the team is taking him for a clown. Trembling with fear, the henchman tries to explain, saying the little monster fought relentlessly and defeated everyone by himself. The human leader calls the guy useless and shoves the ally away in disgust at such extreme cowardice. Unable to keep his balance, the lackey falls sitting on the grass in a completely humiliating way. Ignoring the fallen man, the commander orders a man named Zhangyi to take the team to capture the target alive, wanting to get the story straight. To confirm the order, Zhangyi walks toward the cave, yelling to the allies that they need to bring the creature back alive. Right at the moment of the invasion, a precise arrow hits the troop commander squarely, taking everyone by surprise. The man's body collapses to the ground, leaving the rest of the squad totally paralyzed by the unexpected situation. Completely shocked, the gang boss goes into a panic, trying to figure out where the fatal attack came from. Pointing to the cave entrance, one of the invaders yells, warning that the sniper monster is hiding right up ahead. Wasting no time, Meave quickly pulls the bowstring and fires another projectile with extreme perfection. The new arrow swiftly hits one of the invaders, causing a strong enough impact to knock the man down. The wounded target falls to the ground screaming in pain, while the boss curses his own team for being so slow in a crisis. Hiding in the shadows, the archer shows great satisfaction and mocks the invaders, calling them all fools. Doing her part of the plan, she turns around and runs as fast as she can deep into the dark tunnel. Blinded by rage at the audacity of the ambush, the human boss screams at his subordinates, demanding they storm the hole and capture the creature immediately. Without a second thought, the large group of humans storms the cave, running and yelling at the top of their lungs. While fleeing through the darkness of the tunnel, Meave looks over her shoulder to make sure she is being followed by the invaders. With great agility, the archer leaps high to bypass the traps they themselves had set up on the floor. After landing smoothly, she continues her hasty run toward the back of the hideout. Right behind, the humans completely lose their patience and order everyone to catch that useless creature as quickly as possible. The entire squad charges furiously down the dimly lit corridor, focused solely on catching the target. Reaching a safe spot, Meave warns Gorals that the enemies are coming, and he praises the work, telling his partner to leave through the other exit. Promptly, the warrior agrees to the order and runs past him toward the escape route. Further back in the tunnel, the mob of invaders finally runs into the large wooden barricade blocking the path. Frustrated with the situation, the boss complains that being cornered by a little monster like that is too embarrassing to tell anyone. On the front line, Zhang strikes the wooden structure with his sword using a lot of force. The impact of the weapon causes a bright flash in the dark, violently breaking the barrier. Faced with the easy destruction, the human leader blinks in surprise, noticing something weird in the debris. Mocking the trap, he asks out loud if the monster really thought a pile of trash would count as a real obstacle. Even so, the commander admits that the little creature has its tricks and ends up being smarter than his own henchmen. However, the boss's mocking expression instantly changes to pure shock as he realizes a crucial detail. Accidentally, the lackey triggered a mechanism hidden inside the barricade while clearing the way. Looking closely at the situation, the man notices a fuse lighting up next to a sign warning about explosive powder. Still confused by the discovery, he turns to his boss, asking him to take a look at it. In absolute panic, the commander yells with all his might, ordering everyone to get out of there immediately. The lackey stands there, not understanding the reason for so much despair on his leader's face. Before anyone can react, a gigantic explosion overtakes the entire tunnel, swallowing the invaders in a brutal wave of heat. The force of the impact is so devastating that it leaves no chance of survival for anyone on the front lines. A massive fireball is violently spewed out of the cave entrance, destroying everything around it. Thrown by the pressure of the blast, Zhang Yi flies through the air, letting out an agonizing scream of pain. Tossed awkwardly into the bushes, the human coughs uncontrollably and curses the monster with pure hatred for the cowardly trap. The ambush scene is now just a mountain of burning rubble, with the survivor sprawled on the ground, completely beat. From the top of the cliff, Meave watches the smoke cloud rise and is impressed by the power of that blast. Then the archer notices something strange about her partner and asks if he is okay. Overcome with shock, she stutters his name as she sees Gorals completely surrounded by a glowing pillar of magic light. Thanks to the 30 targets taken out in the cave, the warrior meets his survival quota and receives the system's reward to evolve his class. The magic light fades, revealing the small monster now transformed into a goblin warrior, much taller and more intimidating. Breathing heavily, he tries to get used to his body's new proportions. With a determined look, the leader reflects that he is feeling completely new things, fascinated by the real sensation of getting stronger. Far away from there, the human survivor writhes on the ground, holding his arm injured by the explosion. Spitting in anger, he mutters that he had warned about the danger, thinking it serves them right that the boss's arrogance caused the whole squad's downfall. At that moment, a mocking voice approaches, commenting that it is unbelievable someone survived that fiery hell, grabbing the guy's attention. Calmly walking out of the smoke, Gorals compares the human's resilience to that of a cockroach. In no rush, the warrior grips his combat dagger, ready to handle the situation. Terrified by the fatal approach, the lackey lets out a high-pitched scream of pure terror. With the cold blade right next to the enemy's face, the monster keeps him completely pinned to the ground. Straight to the point, Gorals warns that if he wants to keep breathing, he will have to answer all questions honestly, or else he will become the tribe's dinner. Cutting to a location far away from there, a human lookout calmly watches the horizon from the top of a wooden tower. Leaning on his spear, the guard nostalgically reflects that this summon camp brings back a lot of memories from 10 years ago. Admiring the view of the huge fortified base below, he concludes that no matter how much time passes, the way humans try to survive never changes. In the tall grass, Meave notices the leader deep in thought and asks if there is a problem, but he assures her that the information they got only made things easier. While stealthily leading his tribe through the terrain, Gorls decides the first step is to return to the shaman and report their progress. Agreeing with the plan, the archer suggests they should rearm the team before attempting any new attacks. Trapped among the small monsters, the human prisoner demands his freedom, asking if he cannot just leave already. Trying to secure his life, the guy reminds them he did his part of the deal by marking the exact location of the enemy camp on the map. True to his word, the gang boss confirms that a promise is a promise and decrees he will let the informant live. Almost unable to believe his luck, the lackey stammers in relief, thinking he escaped his end. He then demands they clear the way, throwing it in the group's face that the gang boss spared his life. Right after walking away from the warriors, the coward mutters insults against the creatures, feeling like he managed to outsmart them. Behind him, one of the clan members raises a dagger with a totally maniacal look. With lethal precision, the lackey takes a deep strike right in the back. Instantly, the human lets out a guttural scream of pure pain from the ambush. Quickly, another monster jumps on his back and covers his mouth with its hands to muffle the noise. Then the rest of the gang attacks without any mercy, bringing a painful end to the prisoner right there on the grass. With his eyes glued to the map, Gorls cynically comments that he promised to spare the guy's life, but could not guarantee the same about his subordinate's will. The human traitor's body now merely serves as proof of the clan's relentless brutality, left lifeless on the cold dirt. Back at the tribe's base, the imposing shaman Morksul listens to the proposal and questions if the rookie really wants weapons and troops to invade the human area. With much respect, Gorls patiently explains that he has already mapped out the location, size, and the entire terrain around the target. Very confident in the strategy, the tactical leader guarantees that the chances of winning are massive if they launch a surprise attack. After hearing the subordinate's words, the mystical entity falls silent for a moment, weighing the validity of the proposal. Suddenly, a much larger warrior interrupts the meeting, shouting, demanding that the shaman reject the rookie's request immediately. Bothered by the interruption, Gorls looks over his shoulder, visibly annoyed by whoever ruined his negotiation. Stepping up, the hobgoblin named Goff argues harshly that the tribe should focus on preparing for the great chief's imminent call. The big guy justifies his opposition by stating the journey will be very long, making it crucial to stockpile all supplies and troops starting right now. Scratching his chin, Morksul agrees that the time of the call is near, but admits he has no valid reason to deny Gorls' strategic request. Overcome with outrage, Goff points out that his rival is just a newly evolved amateur, and wasting precious resources on him would be a fatal mistake. Having zero patience for disrespect, Gorls stands up, facing the brute, and challenges him to tag along on the mission to save those precious tribe resources. With a very provocative tone, the tactician pokes at his rival, saying he should only accept the proposal if he actually has real courage. Finding that arrogance amusing, the huge hobgoblin lets out a dark laugh and asks if the shorty is trying to test his skills. Ready for combat, Goff accepts the provocation right away, promising to show in practice the massive gap between them. Desperate, Meave arrives at the cave yelling for her grandfather to find out if her man is nearby. Getting right in his rival's face, the big guy asks in a threatening tone if he accepts an honored duel. The archer goes into shock at the absurd proposal, letting out a gasp of pure surprise. Keeping completely cool, Gorls accepts the challenge, but sets the condition that the loser must grant any wish the winner wants. Absolutely terrified by his confidence, the girl lets out a scream, unable to believe what she just heard. Faced with the situation, the imposing shaman taps his staff and officially sanctions the honor duel between the two warriors. In the middle of the giant combat arena, the two opponents face each other while the crowd waits for the clash. In the stands, the tribe members start chanting the big guy's name in unison. The crowd goes wild, showing total support for the more experienced warrior. Outraged, Meave argues with a comrade, demanding to know why no one stopped this madness. Trying to explain, the friend argues there was no time to do anything, since the shorty just went ahead and accepted the conditions directly. Taking charge, Morksul announces he will be the official witness of the bout, highlighting that they will fight without weapons or magic until someone yields. One of the spectators warns the archer that the opponent has a terrible temper and will not let the rookie leave there alive. Without further delay, the mystical entity raises his hand and officially decrees the start of the battle. Roaring with all his might, Goff calls the kid out to fight, overflowing with fury. Charging like a bull, the giant mocks the rookie, saying he is getting too cocky just because he just evolved. He swears he will break so many bones that the kid will never recover from the damage. Showing zero fear, Gorls merely watches the attack coming at him with a serene posture. With full force, the big guy throws a straight punch, wanting to end the fight right on the first move. Spotting the opening, the small tactician dodges by crouching quickly, sliding right under the enemy's arm. In a lightning-fast counterattack, he lands a powerful strike right on his rival's chin, catching the guy completely off guard. With the brutal impact, the hobgoblin's body is violently thrown backward. The entire stand falls into absolute silence, completely shocked by the sudden plot twist. Fallen on the ground, the big guy is dazed, trying to process the kid's strength. Soon, the crowd starts cheering wildly again, claiming the veteran would never give up that easily. Watching the target get up, the tactician mockingly asks if he still plans on taking a beating. In an act of pure desperation, Goff grabs his opponent in a bear hug, saying that was enough. Gritting his teeth with sheer force, he squeezes his rival, trying to pin him down no matter what. However, the extreme effort ends up taking its toll, and the big guy starts to lose consciousness. Unable to handle his own exhaustion, the giant falls to his knees on the arena floor, totally defeated. Looking at his fallen rival, the winner sighs in relief and comments that the guy has great size, but his technique is garbage. In the stands, the archer jumps for joy, celebrating her hero's crushing victory. Stepping forward, Morkzul officially declares the rookie's victory and promises to grant his request. As a sign of respect, the warrior gives a small bow, thanking the mystical leader for the opportunity. Then he hears someone screaming his name right behind him. Running like crazy, Meave throws herself into the boss's arms, giving him a super tight hug to celebrate. Totally mesmerized, the girl praises his strength and brags to the rest of the group about how amazing her man is. Full of determination, she decrees that from that day on she will be his loyal right hand, warning that they are going to get together before the day is over. Surprised by her boldness, the warrior stammers his partner's name, not exactly sure how to react to such an intense declaration. Breaking the mood, the girl answers her grandfather's call as he waited nearby. With a firm motion, the shaman taps the tip of his staff on the stone floor. A bluish magic light starts glowing intensely from the point of impact. The mystical energy expands quickly, revealing the old leader's ancient power. Analyzing the phenomenon, the tactician instantly realizes it is teleportation magic. Calling the boy over, the entity tells him there is an important person he needs to meet right away. Obeying the order without hesitation, the warrior follows the old leader toward the glowing port. Crossing through the magic, they appear in a huge, luxurious hallway with golden pillars. Behind them, the dimensional portal closes, letting out a soft sound in the empty room. On the smooth marble floor, the two keep walking through the mysterious place. After a few steps, they finally reach the palace's main hall. Looking around, the tactician notices the expensive rugs and refined architecture, totally different from the cave. He walks slowly, feeling the drastic change of atmosphere in that brightly lit space. Suddenly, an unexpected presence catches his attention, leaving him visibly surprised. Appearing out of nowhere, a female figure comments with a nostalgic tone that it has been a long time since her last meeting with old Morkzul. Confused by all this, the boy asks the shaman where exactly they ended up. Instead of answering, the mystical leader simply tells his subordinate to step a bit closer. Accepting the instruction, he takes a few steps forward, standing side by side with the entity. Raising his hand, the old man points a glowing finger right at the rookie's forehead. Touching his head with magic, the shaman orders him to bow down as a sign of respect. Feeling the sudden touch, the warrior freezes, trying to process the weight of that demand. Without ceremony, Morkzul announces he is granting the boy full authority to form an independent clan. He justifies the decision, stating the rookie has more than enough merit and capability, plus he already has several followers. Pointing forward, the old man explains that the person they came to meet will be his main ally on this new journey. Attention shifts back to the center of the luxurious room, where the mysterious figure waits comfortably. With light steps, the hostess moves elegantly across the decorated rug. Revealing her identity, she introduces herself as the Golden Goblin, showing off an aura of pure wealth and power. In shock, the tactician tries to process the fact that an evolution as rare and absurd as that exists right in front of him. Pulling out a heavy chair, the merchant gets ready to talk business. Sitting with boss-like posture, she confirms the boy's name and mentions she heard rumors about his need for weapons. Staring closely at the dealer, he listens to the warning that everything comes with a price, and nothing there will be handed out for free. Extending a polite invitation, the blonde asks him to sit, saying she would love to hear his story first. Without much of a choice, the warrior pulls the chair on the opposite side of the table to join the conversation. Sitting across from her, he takes on a more serious posture, ready for the dialogue. Showing cooperation, he directly asks where she would like him to start. Decided to play fair, the leader promises to share every detail of how he was reborn as a monster, not caring whether she believes it or not. Listening to the warrior's entire tragedy, the Golden Goblin starts trembling in her chair, trying to hold back her emotion. Slapping the table hard, she yells in pure euphoria, claiming the story is brilliant. Laughing non-stop, the merchant points at the boy, guaranteeing that was the most entertaining tale she has ever heard in her life. Not finding her exaggerated reaction funny at all, Gorls just snaps his fingers to draw her attention back to business. Immediately, an absurd amount of valuable items and scrolls starts flying out of a magic chest right next to her. The blonde comments that this revenge legend will definitely be the most valuable piece in her entire personal collection. Raising a finger, she shows she is very satisfied with the direction things are taking. The hostess confesses she loved every detail, while the tactician just waits for the show to end. Stretching out in the luxurious chair, the Golden Goblin cheers, saying it has been a long time since someone got her this excited. Staring at his business partner, the warrior gets annoyed, wanting to know which part of his misery was so good it made him want to finish her off right there. Cutting the small talk, he gets straight to the point and asks if he can take the weapons he needs now. Laughing even more, the hostess agrees that the leader really has no way to fight without proper gear. Standing up abruptly from the armchair, the merchant warns she will not just hand that over. Getting her face real close to his, she promises to give a super special gift to the great vessel, making the boy a bit suspicious. Full of mystery, the woman turns her back and tells the client to follow her through the palace. With a simple motion, the merchant opens a glowing golden portal and invites the warrior to see the gift with his own eyes. Holding a diary, the blonde sighs, remembering the cowardly betrayal he suffered, admitting she loves that tragedy no matter how many times she hears it. Now fully geared with new armor and clothes, Gorls shows off an imposing look, worthy of a true clan leader. Checking out the result, the hostess praises the tactician's new appearance and asks if everything is ready for action. Very satisfied with the gear, he opens his arms and confirms it is perfect to launch the attack. Clenching his fist tightly, the warrior remarks that he can feel much greater power flowing through his body now. Relaxing in the room, the merchant shows a lot of confidence in the deal she just closed. While the other female warriors finish gearing up around them, the Golden Goblin brags that her intuition for investments never fails. Getting his attention, she tells the boy to pay close attention while she explains how the gifts she just gave him work. Without interrupting, the leader listens to every word with maximum focus so he will not miss any strategic details. The scene cuts straight to the summoned humans' camp, showing a white flag with a sword symbol swaying in the wind. From the top of a nearby hill, the tactician watches the enemy base while hearing his gang chanting his name non-stop. Strategically positioned at the edge of the cliff, the warrior leads his new troop, who eagerly await his orders. With the plan in mind, he grips his new sword's hilt tightly, ready for revenge. Giving the signal to attack, the boss screams at the top of his lungs, telling his brothers to charge because the hunt has finally begun. A true horde of small warriors charges furiously down the hill, letting out terrifying war cries. Down below, the human camp's flag keeps swaying calmly, with no one aware of the imminent danger. Desperate, one of the lookouts runs at full speed along the wooden wall's walkway. The guard bursts into the squad leader's room yelling about the attack, and the boss immediately figures the assassins are back. Trying to catch his breath, the lookout corrects the information, revealing the base is being attacked by an entire horde of monsters. Completely utterly in disbelief at the news, the commander goes into shock, not understanding how those weak creatures would dare attack. Outside, the mob of monsters breaks down the entrance defenses and invades the camp brutally. Slicing enemies without any mercy, the tactician recalls the merchant's voice revealing the first special gift. While one of the subordinates finishes off a human, the system explains that all the clan's takedowns are now counted directly for the leader. In his memories, the Golden Goblin raises another finger to announce the second advantage of that alliance. The boy pays close attention to the reveal, focused on using every detail to his advantage in the war. He is impressed, remembering the moment the hostess opened a quest window right in front of him like it was nothing. Still amazed by the absurdity, he realizes the woman has direct control over that world's actual system. Overflowing with power, the blonde explains he will now be able to access and manage the clan's quests without any time or space restrictions. Back in the battle, the leader slides his hand to open the holographic panel, confirming the hunt score in real time. Flashing a sadistic smile, the tactician finds it surreal to be living through a war situation he used to only see in fantasy stories. Throughout the camp, the invaders dominate the humans with ease, breaking their defense with sheer brute force. Giving no chance to react, the small warriors attack from every side, causing massive damage to enemy lines. One of the guards is hit squarely in the face with a wooden club, falling down dazed instantly. Trying to turn the tide, some humans draw their swords and attempt to set up a desperate counterattack. Using all his strength, a soldier lands a fatal blow on one of the monsters, managing to take down the invader in the middle of the chaos. Arriving at the courtyard, the squad leader screams at his henchmen, asking if they are really scared of such weak creatures. Pointing his sword forward, the boss orders the team to teach those invaders a harsh lesson and show them who is in charge. Before he even finishes his speech, an incredibly fast blur cuts through the air right past the commander's defense. The precise attack hits the leader squarely in the eye, leaving the man totally paralyzed by the shock and sudden pain. Sheathing his weapon, Gorls curses the fallen man and asks who he was calling trash just a few seconds ago. Unable to stay standing after the critical wound, the human's heavy body collapses onto the dirt floor. Watching that bizarre scene, one of the soldiers drops his sword in absolute shock at seeing his own boss obliterated by a monster. Panic takes over the platoon and the soldiers start running desperately, warning that those creatures are not normal at all. The front line completely falls apart as the order to retreat to the main base rings out amidst the chaos. The warrior just watches from afar as the mob of humans runs away cowardly toward the center of the camp. With a look of pure disgust, he curses the enemy squad, noting how incredibly stupid they are being. Behind him, his comrades celebrate the easy victory, mocking the invaders' pathetic escape. Despite the troops' excitement, the tactician stays calm and focuses on the real goal that is yet to come. The memory of the Golden Goblin flashes back in his mind, recalling the moment she asked if he had already picked a name for the clan. At that moment, he grew thoughtful about the subject, realizing that decision would represent his entire new existence. The image of the lethal wound on the human leader flashes as a symbol of his cruelty against the race that betrayed him. The red dripping from his dagger's blade serves as the perfect inspiration for the legacy he wants to build from now on. Turning to the gang, the new boss raises his voice and congratulates his green-skinned brothers for the brilliant fight they delivered. Looking at his gathered army, he decrees that on this exact day, they have all been reborn as true warriors under the dark moon. The archer listens to the speech moved to tears, remembering the time when they just hid in the shadows and ran away in fear. The other clan members look up full of hope, proud to have finally achieved a real victory against the humans. Pointing his weapon to the sky with fury, the tactician swears that from this moment forward, they will seek even greater victories. The horde goes into absolute ecstasy, cheering in unison and waiting for the boss to declare everyone's new identity. Slashing the sky with his bloodied blade, the great leader finally names the group, making the birth of the Crimson Dagger clan official. The scene focuses on the human camp, completely devastated by the monster's relentless attack. Highly satisfied with the result, the Golden Goblin comments that she really liked the name Crimson Dagger. Curious, the merchant walks around the room wanting to know why he chose that specific weapon to represent the gang. Gorls explains very directly that his first victory since being reborn was achieved using exactly a dagger. The leader reinforces that taking a life for the first time as a monster left a massive mark on his path with that weapon. Finding the reasoning excellent, the hostess leans on her chair and confesses she likes the choice even more now. Not understanding such generosity, the warrior asks why she is helping so much and what she gets out of it. Walking toward an armchair, the blonde reveals she is only interested in stories, especially the most intense ones. She throws herself comfortably into the seat, stating that tales of revenge are always a huge hit in her line of business. The merchant then explains that while listening to his story earlier, she could perfectly feel all his built-up fury. The tribe leader just listens to the explanation in silence, trying to figure out where she is going with all this talk. Pointing her finger at her partner, she highlights that the warrior's despair was also a high point of the story. Totally hyped by the plot, the hostess admits she is dying to know how this whole tragedy will end. Accepting the allies' eccentricity, the tactician thanks her for the valuable help that made invading the camp way easier. Laughing out loud, the woman brags she is going to make so much money, leaving the boy annoyed when he realizes she plans to sell his life as a book. Wrapping up the meeting, the Golden Goblin wishes an excellent hunt to the great clan master. Far away, the human military base of the 13th Guard Unit stands tall near the mountains. A notice hanging on a wooden board warns about the sudden spike in attacks and demands tighter surveillance from everyone. Inside the base, a human soldier slams his fist on the table, completely outraged by the whole situation. Named Li Sangjun, the warrior rants, asking if it makes any sense for them to be so terrified of inferior creatures. A colleague tries to justify the concern by reading the report that these invaders are not normal and attack in a highly organized way. Refusing to listen, the officer simply crushes a piece of paper angrily in his hands. Throwing the paper ball at his partner, Lee asks why a monster would act alone if the group always travels in a pack. The subordinate warns that half the survivor camp was wiped out, but the boss insists this just proves how incompetent those people are. Spotting a golden opportunity, the squad leader decides he will use this crisis to score a promotion. A bit hesitant about the risky idea, the teammate asks what exactly the plan is. Focus shifts to the paper ball on the floor as the officer mentions the enemy creatures. Entirely confident in his skills, the commander decrees he will wipe out every single one of those monsters personally. Deep inside a dark dungeon, a plate of food is kicked away, scattering the meal across the stone floor. Huddled in the corner of the cold cell, young Heian hugs her legs, looking very shaken by the hostile treatment. Standing in front of the bars, Lee provokes the prisoner, noticing she rejected the meal once again. Trembling with rage, Heian calls the guards disgusting and asks if they tried to spike her food again. The officer gives a mocking laugh, pretending to be shocked by the girl's aggressive and foul mouth. Walking away from the cell with his back turned, he crosses his arms and insults her mother in a very mean way. Losing it over the insult, the young woman grabs the bars with all her might and curses the soldier with pure hatred. The man steps back pretending to be disappointed, complaining that the group did her a favor by taking her in and gets this ungrateful treatment in return. Stepping closer once more, he points out the guys just wanted to have some fun, but she pulled out a knife out of nowhere. Unable to defend herself from those cowardly accusations, the hostage just lowers her head in defeat. Losing what little patience he had left, the commander brutally shakes the cell door to intimidate her. Taking a step back, he lets out a heavy sigh, showing immense annoyance with all that pointless resistance. In a threatening tone, he warns that the time has come to show the girl what her true value is to the camp. Calling out loudly for one of his henchmen, the boss orders them to tie up the prisoner and hand her over to the hunters as soon as they arrive. The bald lackey obeys instantly and laughs, warning that the girl is screwed because she will only serve as live bait. The scenery changes to the middle of a dark forest at night, lit only by the distant glow of the full moon. Entirely vulnerable, Heian finds herself gagged and tied to a wooden log deep in the woods, set up as a trap. On the forest floor, several gold coins are scattered, forming a highly suspicious trail across the dark dirt. The hostage remains tied to the stake with bare feet, having no way to run if any threat appears out of nowhere. Hiding behind bushes, two human hunters watch the trap while the younger one complains about a bad smell. The veteran hunter explains he spread tree sap around the area to mess with the monster's sharp sense of smell. Still doubtful about the sketchy strategy, the boy asks if the veteran is absolutely certain this tactic will work. Extremely confident, the older man guarantees all preparations are done, and the coins will do the job of luring them in. Agreeing with the logic, the rookie comments that the power of money truly works like magic in any situation. Even so, he again voices his worry about how effective just using gold coins as bait really is. To calm his scared partner down, the veteran repeats that the terrain was prepped perfectly, leaving zero room for failure. He figures the targets are naturally greedy creatures and will not be able to resist the urge to scoop up the treasure. Additionally, the hunter reveals that the necklace placed on the prisoner has a strong enchantment meant to attract the beasts. Finding it funny, the rookie makes a joke about the monsters wanting to have some fun too, earning a stern scolding from his partner. Crouching in the brush, the man takes on a dark tone to explain that human females are generally physically soft. Staring into the dark, he wraps up his twisted logic by claiming the young woman will just serve as a better meal. Totally disgusted by his partner's coldness, the young man turns his face away, grumbling about the disturbing way he views the girl's sacrifice. After a few hours of waiting, a slender green hand finally picks up one of the coins tossed on the ground. The lackey holds the shiny gold up to the moonlight, completely mesmerized by that valuable find. Readying their weapons in the bushes, the veteran tells the kid to stay totally focused because the targets took the bait. The enemy pack moves in, calmly picking up the coins, laughing at the human stupidity for losing so much money in the woods. Watching the surroundings carefully from the shadows, Gorls notices something very weird going on just ahead. The tribe leader spots the tied-up prisoner and manages to recognize the girl almost instantly. Desperately trying to break free, the young woman struggles against the ropes, breathing very heavily. Standing in the path, the tactician is impressed by the girl's terrible luck to end up in that deplorable situation yet again. Completely ignoring the obvious trap, the boss and his squad simply walk right past the human bait. With tears in her eyes, the hostage goes into a state of pure shock watching her only chance of rescue walk away. Looking over his shoulder, the warrior mocks the girl, asking if she has some kind of fetish for being tied to stakes. Gagged and unable to talk back, she closes her eyes feeling deep shame for the humiliating position they put her in. Sighing from exhaustion, the tactician keeps walking, criticizing the lack of intelligence of the humans who planned all that. Watching their plan fall apart, the hunters move quickly to ready their combat crossbows in the middle of the brush. To ensure the mission pays off, the leader tells the rookie to aim for the legs, reminding him they need to capture the target alive. Ready to shoot, one of the human hunters tells his partner to stay calm and aim straight for the creature's leader. However, right at that moment, a set trap goes off in the brush, forcefully yanking the hunter's leg. Tied to the wooden stake, Heian screams desperately, warning the monsters not to come closer because the place is an ambush. Standing calmly next to the hostage, Goral simply agrees with total chill, leaving the girl confused. Showing full control of the situation, the warrior points out the exact positions of the enemies hiding in the dark woods. Wasting no time, the Goblin tribe sneaks through the bushes to flank the targets. Drawing their swords, Meave and the other partners launch their attack with extreme agility. Flashing a mocking smile, the tribe leader laughs at the fact that the humans walked right into his trap. Tangled in ropes, the girl is completely lost on how the monster managed to foresee all of that. The story then rewinds, showing how the situation reached this point 3 days ago. In a very peaceful farming village, the atmosphere seems tense around a large wooden box. Inside, several human villagers are kneeling on the floor at gunpoint by the Goblin pack. Stepping up, Gorals gives a dry warning not to make him repeat himself, promising there will be no trouble if they sell some food. Terrified, an old man hands over a few sacks of carrots and potatoes, asking if that is enough. Looking at the measly offer, the gang boss shows a totally disappointed expression at the amount of food. Begging for mercy, the old man explains that the local guard charged outrageous taxes, and that was all that was left in the village. Crying heavily, he highlights that those sacks were their only hope to feed their families. The small tactician evaluates the situation with a heavy look, feeling pity for the farmers. Sighing in frustration, he slams the soldiers for robbing their own people and questions how they even have the nerve to call themselves human. Looking at the veggies on the ground, he mutters that this tiny bit would not feed his tribe for even 3 days. Shocking everyone, the warrior tosses a handful of gold coins straight into the old man's hands. The farmer stares at the fortune in his palm, completely stunned by the monster's action. Setting up the deal, Gorals declares he will only take half the food and tells them to use the money to buy more at the market, since it would last for months. Overcome with emotion, the old man thanks him, calling the leader sir, but he quickly asks not to be called that. Then one of the henchmen asks the boss what they should do with the human soldiers captured in the back. Totally changing his expression, the tactician orders them to finish the prisoners off, stating that trash like them does not deserve to live. Without hesitation, the goblins put a quick and relentless end to the tied-up guards. Scared by the sudden aggression, the villagers huddled together, closing their eyes to avoid watching the heavy scene. With the supply sack already over his shoulder, the leader just turns his back and walks calmly out of the bar. Outside the farm, he looks back, seemingly struck by a very interesting idea. With a quick swipe, a hand rips a flyer pinned to the village's wooden notice board. The poster announces that the 13th Guard Unit is recruiting goblin hunters in exchange for rewards and tax exemptions. Reading the notice, the leader cracks a sadistic smile, thinking humans are way too entitled. Running happily across the field, Meave approaches, wanting to know if her partner packed everything already. Showing the paper to the archer, he tells her they got what they need, but notes that the local guards want to hunt them down. Excited by the opportunity, he asks the girl to round up the fastest members of the gang, because he wants to play around a bit with those soldiers. Saluting full of pride, the warrior promises she never lets her man down. Back to the present at the forest camp, a mouthful of sharp teeth takes a bite of a roasted carrot. The monster pack enjoys the night, relaxing and eating around the campfire after the successful ambush. Sitting on a log, Meave notices something going on nearby with a curious look. Walking calmly, the boss walks past his partner, heading toward the fire. A starving girl tears into a piece of bread, swallowing the food almost without chewing. Now free from ropes and wearing a baggy shirt, Heian cries and hiccups while eating desperately on the ground. Sitting beside her, Gorals advises the young woman to eat slowly so she does not choke. Staring at the hostage covered in dirt, he comments on how impressive her bad luck is for getting into trouble. With a shaky voice, Heian asks if he is sure she cannot tag along, promising to obey everything. In tears, she yells her heart out, saying she cannot stand living in that miserable way anymore. Turning his face without giving much attention, the tactician reminds her he already turned down that request before. Losing her temper, the young woman complains that he should not have saved her if he was just going to ditch her again, wishing she had just perished right away. Keeping his cool, he explains he helped because he wanted to, not out of pity, or at least he tries to convince himself of that. Proving his point, the monster guarantees he is not going to become her bodyguard for life and decides to cut ties right there. Standing up abruptly, he admits he made a mistake and decrees that from that moment on, the girl will have to fend for herself. When he goes to leave, the human grips the hem of his clothes tightly to stop him from walking away. Staring at her savior with fury and despair, she tells him to end her life right then and there. Startled by the explosive reaction, the small warrior takes a step back, totally caught off guard. In tears, she swears she would rather perish there than get captured by that scumbag Lee Sangjun and suffer more humiliation. Hearing that specific name, Goral stops instantly and asks her to wait a second. With a look full of hatred, the leader turns back, wanting to confirm if she was talking about the soldier from the 13th unit. Scared by his tone change, the girl asks if he happens to know the guy. Touching his chin darkly, the tactician confesses he knows the man very well. Consumed by the resentment of the past, the warrior claims that Commander is someone who should not be allowed to live. Focused on getting intel, he presses the girl to find out how long she was held in their base. Still dazed, Heian answers it was only a few days and does not understand the reason for the interrogation. Wasting no time, he demands she tell him absolutely everything she saw and heard in the camp before they decide her future. Far away, a small knife chops at the petals of a wildflower out of sheer boredom. Sitting on a wooden stump, the gang's archer waits for orders, playing with the little flower in her hand. Breaking the silence, Gorls calls his partner in a loud, clear tone. Looking up quickly, Mieve breaks into a glowing smile upon hearing her leader's voice calling her. Getting closer, the boss orders her to gather the fastest and strongest monsters in the clan, leaving the girl confused about the plan. With a totally maniacal look, the warrior reveals he is assembling an elite squad to wipe out the human guard unit once and for all. The scene cuts to the massive stone castle of the military base during a sunny day. Inside the office, the wooden plaque on the desk proudly displays Commander Lee Sangjun's name. Relaxing comfortably in his chair, the human officer breathes heavily, sweating and seemingly enjoying the moment a lot. A close-up of his face shows the man panting with his eyes closed, receiving some sort of intimate treatment under the desk. Leaning his head back, the commander praises the person working down there, claiming they are getting really good at it. The office door is violently thrown open by a soldier in a state of pure emergency. Still panting, the lackey insists that Commander Lee Sangjun really needs to take a look at what is happening outside. Hastily adjusting his pants, the officer groans, wanting to know what kind of mess is happening right now of all times. Outside, flies buzz around the face of a human soldier who is completely defeated. A huge pile of fallen warriors' bodies is roughly dumped from a wagon in the middle of the dirt courtyard. The group of guards gathers around the scene as someone reports they checked all the fallen men's IDs first thing in the morning. Explaining the tragedy, the subordinate reveals those were the guys who went out hunting goblins, and that the rest of the team vanished without a trace. Lacking the stomach for that terrible sight, the commander vomits on the ground while the henchman asks if he is okay. Wiping his mouth while panting, the officer immediately orders to double the number of guards and call for backup, concluding those monsters are not normal. Leaning on his own knee, he sighs heavily, remembering a certain scumbag from his past. His mind wanders back to the time he was considered the strongest commander, proudly leading the front line of the summoned. In that bitter memory, a heavily beaten human ally spits blood and calls the commander garbage, saying he always knew he would end up in that pathetic state. Picturing Gorl's face in his thoughts, the officer clearly remembers the day he watched the warrior meet his own end. Staring at the massive guard unit fortress from the window, the commander tries to figure out how the heck that guy is still alive after everything. Entirely consumed by anger and fear, he slams his fist on his desk, aggressively cursing the situation. Pulling his own hair in pure despair, Lee panics, questioning what on earth those creatures even are. He cannot accept the heavy defeat, since goblins were always considered the weakest and most useless monsters in that entire world. Outraged by the sheer boldness, he wonders how those thugs had the nerve to provoke the human base in such a cruel and humiliating way. Pressing his team again, the boss demands to know if the backup request to the main unit has already been sent, hearing the messenger confirm it. Far away, a carrier pigeon flies hastily across the sky to deliver the distress message as fast as possible. The day goes on peacefully in the mountains around the massive fortress, hiding the immense danger approaching. Near the dense forest, a simple wooden cabin sits completely isolated in the middle of the land. Inside the place, Gorls inspects his new gear and concludes he can now climb pretty much any stone wall. Suddenly, a weird noise catches the tactical leader's attention, making him look up a bit suspicious of the situation. Hanging from the ceiling beams, a tiny bat-winged monster watches the activity with a very malicious glare. Ignoring the bizarre creature on the ceiling, the small warrior tosses a gold coin in the air with utter chill. A highly experienced human hunter snatches the payment midair as the monster gets his attention. Showing who is boss, the chief warns that the gold is fair payment for staying out of his way today. Right after, he throws more coins on the table to cover the cost of all the climbing gear he just grabbed. Staring the human down with a deadly look, the tactician decrees they are even now, and demands the old man get the message to never cross his path again. Sweating cold from that terrifying pressure, the hunter simply nods frantically without saying a single word. With the deal properly closed, Gorls opens the wooden door and walks out of the isolated cabin. As soon as he steps outside, Mieve runs toward him all hyped, announcing she assembled the exact squad her man requested. The two hand-picked henchmen pound their chests swearing loyalty to the Crimson Dagger, thrilled that they did not disappoint the tribe's boss. The warrior praises the archer's good work, leaving the girl completely flushed and melting with love over the validation. Rallying the squad, the tactician orders them to strike the front of the human fortress right after sunset, focused on causing as much chaos as possible, while the archer guarantees her full effort. Turning to the two henchmen, the leader drops the new gear on the ground and orders them to gear up without dragging their feet. With sheer determination in his voice, he decrees that starting from this exact moment, the two officially form the clan's first invasion squad. Already into the night, a literal rain of flaming arrows rains down on the large human base, lighting up the dark sky. One of the lookouts rings the alarm bell with all his might, screaming to the entire troop that monsters are invading the place with no mercy. Leading the frontal assault flawlessly, the hyped archer commands the allies, ordering everyone to keep raining fire on their defenses relentlessly. Amidst all the chaos outside, hurried footsteps echo down the wooden stairs inside the base's main tower. The office door is violently kicked open by a soldier in a state of absolute panic. The lackey desperately reports the base is under heavy enemy bombardment from all sides, catching Commander Lee completely off guard. In max alert mode, the officer points his finger, ordering them to lock the gates right away and station every available soldier on the main wall. Trembling head to toe from the pressure, the henchman salutes and bolts out to execute the boss's orders. Left alone in the candlelit room, the commander slumps into his chair, feeling the weight of despair crush his tough guy act. Sweating cold, he confirms his suspicions that these creatures are totally different, since there has never been a single report of weak monsters attacking such a heavily guarded base. Slamming his fist on the wooden desk, he concludes the only way out is to hold on tight until reinforcements arrive, praying the invaders cannot breach the wall. However, on the darkest, most secluded side of the fortress, a metal hook latches firmly onto the edge of the stone structure. Patrolling that isolated area, one of the guards notices the weird movement and decides to check out what is happening there. The human leans over the defensive wall, trying to spot something in the deep darkness outside. In the blink of an eye, a sharp blade strikes the guard perfectly from below, leaving him no chance to even open his mouth to cry for help. Blood violently splatters as the guard's life slips away from an incredibly fast and silent strike. Lacking strength, the soldier's body collapses backwards onto the stone floor, dropping his spear and leaving the path totally clear for the invasion. Pulling his own weight up effortlessly, Gorls vaults the edge of the wall and lands perfectly inside the human base. Carefully scanning the empty area, the leader notes the distraction tactic worked and praises his archer's flawless job outside. Right behind the tactical boss, the two elite squad henchmen finish climbing the thick rope and join the stealth invasion. Gripping their newly acquired weapons with confidence, the partners get the leader's attention, confirming they are ready for the next attack commands. Oozing a sadistic vibe and flashing sharp teeth, the Crimson Dagger team shows they are more than ready to spread chaos through the facility. Wasting no time, Gorls orders them to strike fast, wipe out the place, and eliminate the knight's main target, none other than the commander himself. The small warriors dash stealthily down the base's stone stairs, taking advantage of the lack of patrols in the hallways. Near the dorms, a human guard notices the breach and yells out, asking who is creeping around the place like that. Before the soldier can alert the rest of the group, the two clan henchmen fire their crossbows with lethal aim. The metal bolt cuts through the dark hallway at a stunning speed, heading straight for the target's chest. The shot hits the guard right in the head, finishing the human off instantly, clean and brutal. Keeping up the hunt's fast pace, the squad keeps descending the flights of stairs, refusing to let any enemy mess with their route. The small tactician leads the charge with his weapon drawn, focused entirely on finding the office of the officer responsible for all the misery in his past life. In another section of the military base, a soldier complains about his partners making too much noise, just moments before getting hit with a sneak attack from behind. The precise strike hits the man's neck hard, choking off his scream of pain and taking him down instantly. Jumping on the opening left in his path, the gang boss charges at another lackey, driving his weapon hard and neutralizing the threat with zero hesitation. Entirely lifeless, the human's heavy body is tossed over the stair railing, plummeting to the floor below with a loud crash. Watching the enemy fall into the tower's abyss, the warrior says a highly mocking goodbye and resumes his relentless hunt for the main target. Locked inside his office, the muffled thuds of falling bodies and the chaos in the hall leave Lee Sangjun frozen in sheer terror. Suddenly, his heavy wooden office door starts getting forced violently from the outside, signaling his worst nightmare has just arrived. The heavy wooden office door is forcefully blown wide open with a violent crash, shattering the lock into pieces. Gripping his sword, the human steps back trembling with fear and stammers for his lieutenant, completely in a panic. Then heavy footsteps echo across the floor as the invader recognizes that frightened voice from somewhere. Casually walking into the room, Gorls mockingly warns the guy he is going to flip out when he gets a good look at his face. The human officer goes into absolute shock, unable to believe the creature that just walked into his office. Desperate, he points his weapon and yells, demanding to know who that monster is, completely outraged that a goblin can speak the human language. Ignoring the enemy's panic, the tactical leader states that shouldn't be his main worry right now. Revealing his true identity, the warrior brings up the past and greets Lee Sang-jun, calling the former ally by his name. Hearing his own name come out of that creature's mouth, the commander freezes, overwhelmed by terror. The scene shifts quickly, showing rushed footsteps echoing through a dark stone tunnel. In that distressing memory, Lee Sang-jun himself is seen running desperately on the front line. Panting and on the brink of exhaustion, the officer grumbles that he can't take another step and will end up collapsing just from running so much. Right behind him, a teammate named Shin Diako cries in panic, begging for help. Lacking any empathy, the human leader screams at his subordinate to stop whining and keep running. Focused entirely on saving his own skin, he promises to finish those darn monsters off as soon as they get a chance. Right then, an enemy warrior relentlessly continues the chase right behind the terrified humans. Wholly consumed by panic, the subordinate yells he can't take this situation anymore and tells the boss to run faster. Overcome with outrage, the young soldier deeply regrets trusting Lee Sang-jun, realizing the entire group was just used as live bait. Suddenly, the young man's eyes fill with pure terror as he witnesses the horrific fate of his partner who lagged behind. Fleeing toward the light, he hears his commander's cynical voice telling them to hang tough because backup would arrive soon. Running for his life, the protagonist swears with all the hatred in the world that he would end the former boss with his own hands if he got the chance, but regrets never fulfilling that promise before losing his life. Returning to the present in the invaded office, the small tactician grabs the human commander's attention once more. Gripping his weapon tightly, the clan leader threatens him, warning that he has a bunch of questions for him. Showing massive satisfaction, the creature suggests they move to a much more private place, since that office isn't the best setting for an interrogation. Shaking in his boots, the human officer raises his sword and yells he isn't going anywhere with that monster. Promptly, the elite henchmen aim their loaded crossbows, while the boss decrees he'll fill the human with arrows and drag him by force. Realizing he's totally cornered, the commander sweats bullets and groans, feeling the weight of despair crush his confidence. Leaning in close, Gorls darkly recalls that this arrogant man never once saw him as a real human being back in the past. Leaving no time to react, the warrior lands a brutal blow that neutralizes the enemy right on the spot. With the main target captured and gagged, the Crimson Dagger squad begins their escape route through the fortress's hallways. Reaching the edge of the outer wall, the commander's tied-up body is carelessly dumped onto the stone floor. Having zero patience, the small tactician delivers a hard kick to the prisoner, pushing the coward straight into the dark abyss. The human officer plummets through the air in freefall, slicing through the night wind straight toward the ground. Hitting the grass with a heavy thud, the prisoner groans in pain through the gag, utterly terrified by the impact. Down below, the rest of the horde gets a kick out of the situation, noting the humans survived the fall exactly like the leader predicted. Acting fast, a monster violently grabs the hostage by the hair, making sure he doesn't try to bolt out of there. From the top of the wall, the boss checks if the infiltration team is okay, and orders the signal for immediate retreat to be sent to the archer. Fulfilling the order instantly, a henchman blows a rustic horn to announce the tactical mission was an absolute success. Positioned on the battlefield outside, Warrior Meave hears the horn's sound echoing over the chaos of the siege. Taking control of the situation, the girl screams for her green-skinned brothers to cease their attacks and begin the tactical pullback immediately. Up in the defense towers, the human guards watch the enemy movement, totally confused by the sudden pause in the assault. Seeing a chance to breathe, one of the lieutenants raises his arms ordering a ceasefire, calling out in relief that the monsters are falling back. After a night of pure terror, the sun finally begins to rise on the horizon, lighting up the mountains and bringing a fake sense of peace. Far away from the military fortress, a small, calm, isolated camp in the middle of the forest begins to wake up with the first rays of the day. Inside the village's wooden walls, a juicy piece of roasted meat is offered on a plate in a very friendly manner. Sitting on the dirt ground, a long-haired young woman stares at the meal with a suspicious look, keeping a totally defensive posture. The bearded old man tries to break the ice with a friendly tone, assuring her the meat is perfectly cooked and tastes excellent. Still quiet, the girl merely looks away, not responding at all to the old man's hospitality. Noticing how nervous she is, the farmer points out right away there is no poison in the food, asking her to relax a little. The mood between the two remains silent and heavy near the wooden fence, showing just how traumatized the visitor still is. Breaking the uncomfortable silence, the old man adopts a more serious tone to express his sincere gratitude. He explains that if she wasn't with that scary group of monsters, he probably would have faced the same tragic end as the village soldiers did that night. Explaining her side, the girl reveals she chose to help because the old man was the only one who showed pity for her situation, instead of making fun of her. Intrigued by her complicated past, the farmer asks curiously if the young woman is also part of the summoned group. To clear up the term, he explains the locals of that world call anyone brought from another time and place summoned. Hugging her own knees, Heian nods quietly, stating that title perfectly fits the tragedy she is living through. The old man mentions he heard rumors that these people get special skills when they complete mystical quests, and asks if she got anything like that. Hearing the word quest, the girl's mind processes the info and she shifts her focus to something invisible right in front of her. Instantly, a blue holographic window pops up glowing in midair, visible only to the eyes of the system's hostage. The glowing panel shows a clear goal for the survival tutorial, demanding she eliminate an enemy creature to finally awaken her hidden skill. Meanwhile, from the top of a nearby tree, the clan's guards watch the interaction and try to guess what the human duo is talking about. Laughing at everyone's curiosity, one of the monsters cracks a dirty joke, suggesting what humans usually do when left alone. Disgusted by the disrespectful implication, Archer Meave lands a solid kick right on the lackey's head to teach him a lesson in manners. Watching the commotion on the roof, the gang leader scolds the behavior while his partner laughs, noting the group woke up pretty rowdy today. The scene abruptly cuts to the dark interior of an isolated cabin, where groans of pure agony break the heavy silence of the room. Severely beaten, Officer Lee Sang-jun gets pummeled non-stop while remaining pinned to a wooden chair in the middle of the room. A brutal strike hits the prisoner's face full force, making him spit blood and let out a muffled scream of suffering. Maintaining a cold, threatening stance, the small tactician gives a simple order demanding the prisoner to start confessing. Staring at the wounded target, the warrior asks directly how he managed to survive that suicide mission in the past. Panting, the human replies mockingly that he's only alive because he didn't lose his life, pretending not to grasp the real meaning behind the question. Punishing the disrespect instantly, the clan leader lands a heavy punch to the officer's face and warns that answer doesn't cut it. Giving no room for recovery, an onslaught of relentless attacks massacres the prisoner's body repeatedly without mercy. Unable to take so much physical punishment anymore, the commander screams in desperation, begging the monster to stop the beating. Totally broken by the psychological pressure, the man gives in through tears and begs to know what on earth the creature wants to hear from him. Cold as ice, Gorls merely repeats the exact same initial question in a dry and direct manner, determined to drag the truth out at any cost. In tears and utterly confused, Lee Sang-jun asks how he's supposed to explain why he's alive, since asking that to someone who is clearly breathing makes zero sense. Keeping up the threatening tone, Gorls explains he saw the man get hanged in the square and lose his life, stating Ha Yurai herself carried out the sentence. Panting, the human asks if the monster is talking about the sacred sword Ha Yurai and doesn't get why she would hang him. Calling the tactician a lunatic, the officer swears he's never even seen this woman's face and has no clue what execution this is. Grabbing the prisoner's face firmly, the warrior questions why a piece of garbage like him wouldn't know that, accusing the man of gathering the summoned under the guise of helping them, only to use them as mere servants. Squeezing his grip even tighter, he accuses the human of offering the women of the group to the higher-ups, leaving the prisoner terrified and in immense pain. The goblin keeps exposing the past, recalling that the man deserted to the west with those people, and 4 months later got caught by the sacred sword and met his end. Coughing, the captain swears this is a massive lie, since he's never been out west and has been living in that region for just over a year. Hearing that revelation, the small warrior is completely shocked by the new information. The human merely coughs non-stop, feeling the weight of the monster's hand gripping his battered face. Evaluating the situation calmly, the clan leader realizes the officer actually seems to be telling the truth about the time he's been there. Then he thinks about how Lee Sang-jun's rank here is only captain, not commander, trying to figure out what he's missing. An absurd realization hits the warrior's mind, making him freeze for a moment as he thinks of an impossible possibility. Suddenly changing the subject, he lets go of the prisoner and asks what day it is today, leaving the man totally lost at the shift. Out of patience for stalling, the monster lands another blow to the human's face, demanding he speak the exact date, including the year. Spitting blood and utterly defeated, the human reveals the current date is May 7th of the Imperial Year 86. The tactician goes into absolute shock, repeating the year out loud as he tries to process the info. Covering his face with his hand, he tries to get his thoughts in order facing such a colossal revelation. Without another word, the leader turns his back and starts walking toward the exit, while the prisoner asks where he is going. Desperate, the captain yells that the monster should untie him immediately, since he managed to get all the answers he wanted. Stopping in his tracks, the warrior looks over his shoulder and comments that he almost forgot an important detail. Standing right behind the prisoner, the small leader recalls an old promise he made a long time ago, while the human tells him to stop stalling and untie the ropes. His mind goes back to the time when he was still human, remembering the pure hatred he felt when he swore to end that scumbag with his own hands. Back to the present, the tactician grabs Lee Sang-jun's head firmly, taking the man completely by surprise. With a swift, relentless motion, he lands the fatal blow, settling the conflict once and for all with no chance of defense. Looking at the defeated target in the chair, the goblin comments with relief that he finally managed to keep his promise. The day starts to break around the isolated wooden cabin in the foggy forest. Assessing the situation logically, the boss realizes he is living in the year 86, exactly 5 years before the day he lost his past life. This realization changes everything, making him understand he didn't just undergo a simple resurrection, but a genuine time travel experience. Embracing his new reality, the leader pushes the creaky wooden door open and steps out of the cabin with a resolute stance. Walking across the damp grass, the warrior approaches the human who is huddled on the ground near the camp wall. Calling the girl Jang Hyeon, he asks if she has a second for a very direct talk. Super thrilled by his attention, the young woman jumps up, nodding eagerly. The two start talking right there in the courtyard, with the girl hanging on every word from her savior. The morning vibe seems pretty calm in the village, with a soft breeze rustling the tree leaves under the bright sky. Adopting a serious stance, the little tactician crosses his arms to have a final chat with the system's prisoner. Asking her to listen closely, he asks if the young woman still intends to tag along, getting an instant confirmation. Being totally honest, he warns he needs to make one thing perfectly clear before they decide anything, guaranteeing he cannot promise her safety. The warrior explains the road ahead will be far worse than anything she has faced so far, stressing that she will have to fend for herself. Very determined, the human replies without a second thought that she still wants to follow him, even knowing all the risks. Seeing the girl's resolve, the leader asks her to memorize a specific phrase very well. After speaking a few words in the monster language, he translates the sentence, saying it means being a goblin's war trophy. Not understanding the point of it, she asks what it implies, and he explains the phrase states that she belongs to him. Pointing a finger, the tactician reveals that reciting it will stop most goblins from laying a hand on her, but stresses that figuring out how to survive day to day is her responsibility. The girl keeps listening quietly, while the monster warns there is one last important detail to sort out. Turning to leave, the leader lets her know she is free to go whenever she wants if she ends up changing her mind. Deeply relieved by her savior's attitude, the human thanks him for the chance with total sincerity. Running after him right after, she nervously asks if she could ask a favor, making the boss stop to listen. With tears welling in her eyes, the young woman confesses she needs to take a bath somewhere, since it's been ages since she last managed to clean up. Short on patience, the warrior yells Meve's name, who pops up instantly all hyped, while he mentally jokes that the archer was definitely not eavesdropping on the conversation. Pointing to the girl, the boss tells his partner this human is now his prize and tells her to spread the word to the rest of the clan, leaving Meve a bit confused but willing to obey. Peace continues to rule the small farming village as the morning rolls on smoothly. Nearby, a makeshift white fabric curtain hides the area where Heian finally manages to bathe, with plenty of steam rising through the cold morning. Outside the makeshift booth, the tactician and the village's old man chat very amiably about recent events. Sighing, the small warrior apologizes for the trouble, admitting he is still indebted to the farmer whether he likes it or not. Laughing at the remark, the old man tells him not to worry, guaranteeing the debt has been paid back with interest. Gorls notices his henchman dragging Captain Lee's body across the yard, and comments that the tribe is going to clean up their mess on the way out anyway. Finding the situation funny, the villager confesses that if the monster had left the body there, he would chop it up and use it as bait himself, picking up on the warrior's personal hatred for the officer. Shifting to a more serious tone, the old man reveals absolutely no one in that village could stand the human guard unit. The old man recalls the tough times when the captain would rob the residents by charging insane taxes, and the soldiers would take all the leftover food, claiming military confiscation. Admitting his own resentment, the farmer remarks he shouldn't say this in front of the leader, but reveals those thugs were the only reason he became a monster hunter. The captain's body keeps getting dragged across the dirt, while the old man guarantees many locals will celebrate when they hear about that tyrant's fall. Interrupting the chat, Meve comes running with a pile of clean clothes in her hands, asking where her partner wants to put the items bought at the human market. The warrior tells the archer to hand the clothes to the girl in the bath, leaving Meave outraged that he is giving brand new clothes to a mere war prize. Behind the curtain, the human yells the phrase in the monster language that the leader taught her, leaving the archer confused, asking if she is some kind of pet mascot. Covering his ears from the yelling, the tactician tells his partner to lower her voice and stop making a scene since everyone there is aware of the situation. Walking alone through the forest right after, Gorls tries to gather his thoughts on losing his life to the sacred sword and being reborn due to the timeline rewind. Thinking deeply, he figures out that people like Lee Sang-jun, who should have vanished years ago, are still living normally because time has turned back. Pleased with this idea, the small leader's face reflects a dark excitement as he pieces together the temporal puzzle. Chuckling softly in a sinister way, he clenches his fists, feeling the thrill of the new possibilities he has in his hands. Perfectly grasping the rules of this new world, he sees the real perks of his situation. The goblin's eyes go wide as he is struck by a wonderful realization, noticing that his beloved Seulgi might still be alive in this timeline. The memory of his former human partner running beside his past self floods his mind, making him decide that getting revenge on Ha Yurai can wait. Thinking of the woman he loved so much, he decrees that ensuring her survival is his top priority from this moment on. Staring down a massive fortress under heavy rain, the warrior swears that this time he won't let the girl lose her life for anything. Keeping that relentless stance in the rain, the warrior swears he will destroy the entire world if he has to in order to protect the woman he loves. Sometime later, the captain's body swings upside down tied to a tree in the middle of the dark forest. Meanwhile, a human search party walks through the woods lighting the path with torches until they bump into the bizarre scene. The officer's face already shows clear signs that he met his end a good while ago. Riding his horse, one of the warriors confirms the captain's ID, regretting the group arrived too late to help. Looking at the state of the body, the squad's archer scrunches her nose and asks if the monsters really needed to string the guy up like that. The team's mage then comments very seriously that the rumors were right, because that definitely was no regular goblin. Feeling a tense vibe in the air, the group's big veteran confesses he has a terrible gut feeling and warns the current enemy is entirely different from the ones they have faced. With that, the leader instructs the team to focus on recovering the officer's remains first, warning the creature might have left some trail. Focused on the mission, the veteran orders everyone to inspect their weapons and double-check their armor right away. The image of the defeated captain adds fuel to the group's anger, deciding to wipe out whoever was responsible for that. Full of hate, the leader swears they will end every single monster that finished off their partner. The scene then shifts to the grand gates of a fortress opening on a bright day. The mercenary group rides into the base, grabbing the attention of everyone who notices the search squad's return. Sizing up the situation from afar, a base guard figures they must have found the captain, but the heavy mood makes it clear the man didn't come back alive. As soon as they hit the courtyard, the new guy in charge of security steps up with a cynical smile, commenting on their early return. This guy is the newly appointed captain, who doesn't seem to care much about the tragedy. Being super direct, the old man explains that unfortunately they arrived too late, and the coroner already ID'd the remains on the way. The veteran shakes a small pouch of coins in his hands, showing the payment they got. Trying to smooth things over, the rookie officer explains the higher-ups decided to add a bonus to the original reward, but the mercenary leader reminds him the mission isn't over yet. Flashing a fake smile, the captain argues that if they already found the target, the job is officially done. He mockingly asks if the warriors really want to waste time hunting useless goblins, questioning if they want to spread the word to everyone that the official guard was humiliated by little monsters. Hearing that nonsense, the archer loses her temper and threatens the officer for talking like that to her leader, while her partner tries to calm her down. With total disdain, the rookie waves his hand and tells them to stop making a scene in there and get out already. The veteran merely listens to the disrespect in silence, holding tightly onto the coin pouch. Before leaving, the old man shoots a look of pure disgust at the suited-up officer. Without saying a single word, the leader turns his back and waves his hand, ordering his team to get out of that disgusting place. As the squad walks away across the courtyard, the captain keeps poking them from afar, congratulating the old man for the good work in a very sarcastic tone. Later on, the sun begins to set, lighting up a wooden sign on the road, while one of the warriors admits he gets angrier the more he thinks about it. Riding down the dirt trail, the group complains about the arrogant attitude of the 13th Unit soldiers, thinking it's absurd being treated like mere merchants just because they are mercenaries. Looking at the leader, the mage asks about that extra money the officer offered for them to drop the matter. Very outraged, the girl points her finger, criticizing the captain's arrogant posture over a few measly coins. Bothered by the group's passiveness, she asks if they are simply going to swallow the disrespect, reminding them the old man never let something like that slide. Staring at his friend, the mage cracks a little smile and asks if she still hasn't figured out how their boss usually operates. The veteran immediately confirms the theory, revealing they are heading toward the local villages to investigate on their own, because that whole story of monsters taking down a squad is way too fishy. Wearing a very serious expression, the leader shares that the coroner found heavy injuries on the captain, including broken bones and internal damage. He explains regular goblins usually aim straight for the head with tools or bite vital spots, proving they never torture their prey like that. Putting the pieces together, the mercenary concludes they are either dealing with a completely never-before-seen creature or someone very smart is running the pack from the shadows. To take the first step, he suggests the squad find a nearby inn, since places like that are perfect for gathering gossip and rumors. Finding the excuse funny, the archer accuses the old man of using the investigation as an excuse to get drunk, reminding him he had promised to quit drinking. The rustic wooden sign points to the entrance of the small village right off the road. Far away, the scenery cuts to inside a brightly lit cave, where the tactical leader shows a tidy room for the human girl to stay temporarily. Amazed by the well-kept space, she widens her eyes, asking if monsters really live similarly to people. Shattering the illusion, the warrior explains he made specific tweaks to the room to fit her needs, ensuring a minimum of comfort. Totally embarrassed and with red cheeks, the human thanks her savior's kindness very shyly. Pointing to the rustic furniture, he lets her know she can sleep right there and tells her to pick whatever she can eat from the stuff the henchmen bring. The girl sits on the bed carefully, testing the comfort of that makeshift spot. Avoiding eye contact with her, the monster confesses he doesn't know how she is feeling with this whole bizarre situation. Right before walking out, he tries to say that hideout is the safest place at the moment, but notices the human already passed out. With a slight smirk, the warrior talks to himself, remarking that she seemingly made herself at home pretty fast. Finally at peace, the young woman sleeps deeply wrapped in thick blankets. In another part of the hideout, the leader sits in front of a stone table with an extremely focused look. Staring at an open map in front of him, he decides the time has come to organize all the intel and plan the next steps. With a simple flick of his fingers, he projects the magic system interface right in front of his eyes. The glowing panel displays his current stats, confirming he is now a level 6 clan master. Checking out the new features, the tactician finds it amazing that he can open that window as many times as he wants, remembering that in his past life the limit was only twice a day. Curious about the interface, he decides to check the virtual tabs to track the progress of his current quests. The blue screen shows 20 days left to complete the survival tutorial, and he is really curious about the reward that promises to unlock a secret shop using gold coins. Moving to the next window, he checks the experience bar for his next evolution and starts weighing whether he should become a goblin assassin or blacksmith. Thinking about other options like shaman or archer, he pictures old Morksul and his partner Meave, concluding that picking those classes would mean following exactly the same skill path as them. Recalling his own past, the leader notes he spent his whole life fighting with swords, which is why he has absolutely zero capability to follow a ranged attack path. Stabbing his weapon into the wooden table, he decrees the warrior class is the only logical choice if he wants to face those scumbags head-on in the future. His mind projects the image of the defeated captain alongside Commander Ha-Yurai, reinforcing exactly who the ultimate target of this journey is. With eyes glowing an intense red of pure hatred, the monster swears that even wanting to protect Seulgi, the sins of those traitors haven't vanished, and they will all pay an incredibly high price. The dark reflection is brutally cut short by Meave, who kicks the door wide open screaming, announcing she brought massive news. Confused by the sudden yelling, the boss asks what she means by that, while his partner seemingly freezes instantly. Then the archer points outside the room and starts stuttering, unable to finish her sentence. The girl's eyes lose all their sparkle, displaying total shock at something she just saw. Not understanding the subordinate's mood swing, the warrior asks what happened, noticing her eyes welling up with tears. Amidst the tears, the little monster calls the leader a liar at the top of her lungs, leaving him completely lost in the situation. Totally freaking out, she turns her back to run away from there, screaming she hates her own man while the tactician tries to stop her, demanding to know what the important news was. To hold the girl, he grabs his partner's arm firmly and tells her to wait a second to properly explain what kind of mess this is. Full of anger and jealousy, the archer points toward the other room and demands he explain why that so-called war prize is sleeping in his bed. Cornering the boss against the wall, the girl screams in his face, asking if the two have already hooked up, leaving the small tactician in shock over the scene. Consumed by jealousy, Meave cries loudly, pouting big time and complaining that he was her man, claiming they should have gotten together first. To try and contain the jealous meltdown, Gorls hugs the archer tightly. Caught completely off guard, the girl freezes with her eyes full of tears. Keeping his cool, the leader explains he hasn't done any crap like that with the war trophy. Still a bit teary, Meave asks quietly if he is telling the truth. Flashing a very confident smile, the tactician reminds her that he is her man. Hearing that, the warrior turns completely red, picturing some very bold things. Breaking his partner's daydream, the boss tells her to focus and spit out what the big news was. With that, the girl finally snaps back to reality and remembers what she was doing. In a panic, she yells out that a group called the Ember Hunters is looking for him. Not quite getting it, Gorls asks who exactly she is talking about. Panicked, the archer tries to explain they are highly dangerous guys. Trying to process the info, the warrior repeats the name, looking a bit confused. He falls silent for a moment, digging for that name in his memory. Suddenly, a memory hits hard and he goes into a state of absolute shock. Grabbing his partner's shoulders, the leader demands to know if she really said Ember Hunters. Startled by the sudden reaction, the girl confirms she had been repeating that name the whole time. Wasting no time, the warrior lets go of his companion's shoulders. He runs down the cave hallway, totally outraged that this specific squad of all groups showed up. His mind travels to a dark cave, where a group of humans ran desperately toward the exit. Mid-escape, a young guy panted on the verge of total exhaustion. Suddenly, a shadow creature leaps right in front of them. Leaving no room to defend, the monster strikes one of the guys with a relentless blow. The human's body drops to the stone floor completely neutralized. Desperate, the young man shakes his friend, trying to wake him up while the threat gets closer with a weapon. Realizing the imminent danger, the kid turns his head, absolutely terrified. Right at that moment, a glowing magic attack hits the creature squarely, tossing it away. Saved by a hair, the kid looks up in shock. An imposing team emerges from the light, with the leader introducing themselves as the Ember Hunters Mercenaries. Showing chill vibes, the group's veteran asks the survivor's name. Still on the ground, the kid thanks them for the rescue in a very shaky voice. Feeling more relieved, he finally reveals his name as Kim Taesung. Back to the present, the archer runs after the leader, asking if everything is okay. Grumbling with rage, Gorls admits he knew his actions would draw attention, but he didn't expect to involve that exact squad. Stopping dead in his tracks, he asks where was the last place this group was spotted. Far away, the famous mercenary team waits at the entrance of a hideout deep in the forest. An enemy flag flaps in the wind, marking the turf of a gang that hunts their own summoned peers. Taking charge, the veteran leader makes sure everyone knows the goal. Focused, the team members hear the order to clear the place and rescue the kidnapped civilians. On top of that, the old man notes they need to track that goblin down before giving the signal to invade. Inside, the captured civilians cower as a thug walks around the area. The hostages shake with fear as that intimidating guy gets close. The criminal starts yelling at some lackeys near the campfire. Crashing the commotion, the veteran walks into the cave, politely asking them to cooperate and let the victims go. The bad guys stare at the invaders, completely confused and outraged by the nerve. Without a second thought, one of the thugs raises his axe and orders to wipe out the intruders. The entire gang charges furiously, screaming insults at the mercenaries. Sighing tiredly, the old man notes they really don't want to solve things peacefully. The criminals lunge forward, warning the invaders picked the wrong place to start a fight. With an incredibly fast move, the veteran lands a clean strike on the first opponent. The impact makes the bald thug howl in pain instantly. Without skipping a beat, the mercenary leader slashes through the enemies with ridiculous ease. His blade keeps slicing the bad guys in a fluid, relentless attack. Trying to fight back, one of the criminals orders the archers to focus all their shots on the old man. But before they can shoot, the gang's shooters are hit by flaming arrows. Lowering her bow, the squad's girl mocks the enemy's stupidity for thinking they stood a chance. In utter panic, one of the survivors yells for their team's may. Capitalizing on the panic, the veteran finishes off another lackey with extreme precision. The force of the strike is so huge, it brutally eliminates the threat right on the spot. Standing among the fallen opponents, the leader sighs, commenting that his age is starting to catch up with him. Suddenly, a blast of freezing energy is fired straight at him. Spotting the danger, the archer tells the boss to step back and fires a fire-charged arrow. The hot projectile intercepts the ice attack right midair. The clash of magic creates a massive steam explosion on the battlefield. Stepping out of the shadows, the gang's mage glares at the invaders, demanding to know who they are. The mercenary leader just eyes the new opponent with a very serious stance. Known as an ice mage, the thug starts summoning a powerful blizzard around his own body. Wearing an arrogant look, he shows off his magic power to intimidate the squad. Full of himself, the thug asks if they lost their minds invading someone else's turf like that. Calmly pushing his glasses up, the mercenary mage claps back, saying the bad guy is the one who lost his mind. The guy's eyes show extreme confidence in his own skills. Taking a step forward, he laments that someone with such a rare awakening stooped so low as to work for criminals. Offended by the lecture, the ice mage loses his temper and warns the kid is asking to get annihilated. The thug's face twists into a totally psychopathic and sadistic smile. Unleashing all his power at once, he tells the enemy team to go straight to hell. Shouting the spell's name, the mage crafts a huge lance of pure ice and throws it at the invaders full force. Keeping his cool, the rookie mage cracks a highly confident smile facing the attack. The ice thug panics, not understanding why his magic suddenly failed. Holding a frozen steak, the kid mockingly asks if this was the spell the enemy tried to use. Totally shocked, the bad guy screams, demanding to know how that intruder managed to steal his magic. Pointing his finger, the boy proudly introduces himself as a spell thief and fires the attack. The counterattack hits the enemy mage head-on, neutralizing the bad guy with his own magic. With the violent impact, the thug's body is tossed backward and he goes down entirely defeated. Adjusting his glasses with style, the young spellcaster shows massive satisfaction with the result. Turning to the leader, he comments that completely takes care of the gang issue. The group's archer sighs heavily, cursing her teammate for jumping the gun. Scolding him, she reminds him he should have captured the mage alive to wring out useful info. Cutting off the argument, the veteran asks them to stop fighting and focus on the hostage's safety. Without arguing, the two kids quickly agree and start following the boss across the terrain. The old warrior warns he heard something suspicious nearby, ordering the team to proceed with caution. Watching everything from afar, Gorls concludes those mercenaries are still very good people. Suddenly, a system ping grabs the goblin leader's attention, catching him by surprise. A magic window warns that powerful enemies have popped up in a very close radius, triggering a hunt quest. The panel reveals the identities and high levels of the team's veteran, archer, and spellcaster. The system's order is crystal clear, demanding he eliminate those targets immediately. Reading the warning, Gorls drops an indignant curse word at that ridiculous demand. The small warrior grits his teeth, showing huge frustration with the forced situation. Focused, he makes a firm decision on what he is going to do about those mercenaries. Pointing his finger at the blue screen, he rejects the quest without a second thought. A new warning pops up, stating that ditching the hunt will trigger severe penalties and drop the clan's reputation. Sighing tiredly, he confirms he knows the consequences and tells it to cancel the task anyway. The system fires off several penalty alerts, making the leader snap at the voice to shut up with zero patience. Reflecting on the past, he remembers that group was the only one that saved him without asking for anything in return. Totally resolved, the tactician swears he will dodge any conflict with the Ember Hunters at all costs. The setting shifts to a rustic wooden sign, pointing the way to the quiet Pendleton village. Running by the village entrance, a little boy excitedly announces the mercenaries finally arrived. Escorting the rescued hostages, the squad walks calmly down the village's dirt road. The locals celebrate the group's arrival, clapping for the warriors for handling the situation. Families emotionally reunite, rushing to hug their relatives who had been taken. Seeing the tears of relief, the team smiles, satisfied they pulled off the rescue perfectly. The village chief bows, thanking them from the bottom of his heart, while the veteran acts humble about the deed. The old man vents that the local guards do nothing but squeeze outrageous taxes out of the people. Handing over a bag of coins, he apologizes for not being able to offer a bigger reward. Holding the payment, the mercenary leader guarantees the amount is more than enough for the job. Taking advantage of the moment, the old warrior asks if there are any rumors about a goblin in that area. Confused by the question, the village chief repeats the term while the veteran asks for any available. Back at the clan's dark hideout, Heian stays seated, watching the place with massive dread. The girl fidgets with her hands, trying to work up the nerve to explore the unknown spot. Standing up slowly, the human begins sneaking down the stone hallways very carefully. Holding her sword, she peeks from behind a wall to check if there are any monsters around. Suddenly, a tiny goblin child bumps into the girl and lets out a scream of surprise, scaring the human. From the scare, some purple roots tumble across the stone floor of the dark hall. The human crouches calmly and gathers the scattered veggies, getting her act back together. The monster child stands nearby, staring at the girl with a very innocent, hungry look. Feeling pity for the little creature, Heian offers the food and asks if she wants a piece. Thrilled by the offer, the little goblin walks toward the human with tiny steps. The child reaches out her little green arms to grab the food straight from the system prisoner's hand. However, instead of taking the root, the little girl hugs the human's waist tightly, sending her into a panic. The little girl rubs her face against her clothes, showing huge affection in a very cute way. Shaking nervously, Heian pets the child's head, praising her sweet nature. After the initial scare passes, the human lets out a heavy sigh, feeling the weight of that bizarre situation. The system panel glows, warning that she needs to take down a goblin to awaken her unique skill. Looking at her own sword leaning against the wall, the young woman thinks about the survival quest's cruel demand. Ignoring the command, she pushes the weapon away and simply hugs the little girl, refusing the brutal task. Night falls over the quiet forest, revealing the mercenaries' small camp lit by the fire. Near the flames, some meat skewers roast slowly, spreading a nice smell through the... Sitting by the fire, the archer announces the food is ready, but the boss tells the kids to eat first. Catching the tense vibe, the girl asks what the old leader is thinking about so intensely. With his hand on his chin, the veteran confesses there is something really weird about that goblin they are hunting. The warrior points out that practically all the recent attacks were targeted exclusively at the armed summoned people. He concludes the creature is smart enough to pick targets the people hate, dodging bigger trouble. Shocked, the rookie mage asks if monsters got that smart, while his friend agrees with the theory. Keeping a serious look, the leader warns the story doesn't end there, relying on the village chief's gossip. The veteran reveals the rumors claim this specific monster can speak the human language flawlessly. Finding that crazy, the archer says it's a lie, and the mage mocks it, asking if they even know how to say anything else. Right at that exact second, the sound of branches snapping in the shadows grabs the whole squad's attention. Speaking from the dark, Gorls greets the Ember Hunters calmly, surprising the humans. The small tribe leader walks casually out of the thick woods toward the light. Wasting no time, the mercenaries draw their weapons and take combat stances against the intruder. Ignoring the armed threat, the tactician casually remarks that they have already dug up a lot of info on him. Facing the team, the warrior announces he is going to skip the intros and get straight to the point. Wasting no time with introductions, the archer fires a fast arrow straight at the intruder. Keeping his cool, Gorls raises his hand and catches the projectile midair with ridiculous ease. The mercenary squad is completely stunned by the monster's absurd agility. Snapping the arrowhead, the small tactician notes he got the message, but asks the girl not to try that stunt again. To guarantee his own safety, he reveals he left his allies waiting in ambush around Pendleton Village before heading there. Doubling down on the threat, the goblin explains that if he doesn't return at the set time, the team can guess what will happen to the locals. Spotting the dirty play, the rookie mage points out the creature took the village hostage to dodge a head-on fight. Confirming the theory, Gorls shows he is completely in control of the situation without breaking a sweat. Stepping forward, the veteran leader asks if the invader showed up there just to talk. Pleased they got the hint, the warrior sits on the ground calmly and asks for a moment of their time. Without dropping his guard, the old mercenary demands to know what the monster wants to say. Getting straight to it, the tactician reveals he knows they are tracking him and orders the group to leave that region immediately. Turning down the offer, the veteran explains they need to put an end to the creature attacking people, but tries to find a middle ground. Shutting down the negotiation, the goblin states there are specific humans he must eliminate with zero exceptions, and he won't stop until he does. Sizing up the invader's stance, the Ember Hunter's boss laments that the monster doesn't know how to negotiate, concluding they won't reach a peaceful deal. Showing firm resolve, Gorls stands up and warns he didn't come there to bargain, but to stop them from meeting a pointless end. With a threatening tone, he sets a strict one-week deadline for the squad to clear out of that territory. The small warrior decrees this is the absolute last courtesy and consideration he will give them before making a move. Far away in the hideout, the human Heian stares at something with deep hesitation and tired eyes. On the stone floor, the little goblin girl keeps stuffing her face very innocently and distracted. Watching the scene in silence, the young woman seems to be wrestling internally with her own conscience. Unable to handle the system's psychological pressure, she grips her dagger's handle tightly. The hostage raises the weapon right behind the defenseless child, while the holographic panel demands the elimination of a monster to unlock her skill. The scene snaps back quickly to the mercenaries' firelit camp in the middle of the night forest. The mage and archer stay on high alert, checking the perimeter after the invader's ultimatum. Hiding in nearby bushes, a group of human assassins watches the targets from afar, confirming the Ember Hunter's IDs. Plotting a dirty ambush, one of the criminals suggests taking out the guys first so they can have plenty of fun with the girl after. The shadowy mercenaries' leader draws his weapon slowly and gives the order to launch the cowardly strike. Suddenly, one of the henchmen stops the play, warning in a panic that something just popped up on the path. The assassins are completely bewildered when they spot the small goblin casually walking toward the enemy camp. Catching the tail end of the chat from a distance, the assassins hear the goblin repeat he went there just to prevent unnecessary casualties. Repeating the ultimatum, the tactician warns again that the humans have exactly 1 week to clear out of the region. Wrapping up the deal, he instructs that the squad must wave a white flag on the 5th day if they agree to the truce proposal. With a heavy glare, the monster promises that if they run into each other again, things will end in the worst way possible. In an almost pleading tone, he asks the veteran not to let the story end in a massive disaster for everyone. The Ember Hunters simply soak in the intel silently, feeling the real weight of that warning. Satisfied that the message was delivered, the small leader turns his back and vanishes calmly into the dark forest. Watching the creature walk away, the assassins are dumbfounded, trying to wrap their heads around what the heck they just saw. Completely lost in the situation, the criminals question how the group made a deal with a goblin that speaks perfectly. Falling back immediately, the ambush leader decides to head back to the guard unit, believing he found a much better way to handle that. The setting changes to a clear day, showing an old wooden sign pointing to the calmness of a new place. Back in the dark cave, the little goblin girl keeps eating her veggie without noticing the imminent danger she was in. Young Heian stares at the kid with her head down in slouch posture, fully giving up on the lethal strike. Unable to hurt the innocent little girl, the human drops the dagger on the floor, catching the kid's attention, who turns around looking very confused. Right at this moment, Gorls walks down the stone halls getting bowed to and called captain by his subordinates. Walking calmly through the rustic hideout, the tactician hears some weird noises coming straight from the bedroom. He stops dead at the room's door, finding the unexpected activity in there pretty weird. Staring at the scene with a puzzled look, the boss asks what on earth the human is doing right now. Sitting on the dirt floor, Heian uses her dagger to peel the food very carefully and greets her savior awkwardly. The goblin is left speechless as the girl explains to the kid that eating the peel is gross and promises to hand over the clean snack. Watching that absurd interaction, the leader mentally wonders how adaptable this human can be to act like that so fast. Sighing heavily, he advises the girl not to get attached to just anyone if she doesn't plan on living there forever, warning that it will only make her life harder. A bit embarrassed by the sudden scolding, the young woman tries to justify herself, saying she was just peeling a fruit for the little one. Keeping completely quiet, the warrior simply watches Heian feed the food into the little girl's mouth, telling her to chew slowly. The scene shifts radically to the massive stone structure of the 13th Guard Unit's base in broad daylight. In the tax collection department, two officers chat casually in a spacious room packed with stacked paperwork. A quill works fast, scribbling important, forged numbers onto an official form. A subordinate hands the rigged budget request over for review by the new guard captain, named Kim Hangul. Showing massive satisfaction, the officer approves the fake budget hike, so they can skim a good chunk of the public funds. Worried about the forged paperwork, the helper asks if they shouldn't pay the Ember Hunters properly just in case the higher-ups decide to dig deep. Keeping a laid-back vibe, Captain Kim Hangul reveals he sent a squad of assassins to secretly trail the mercenaries, telling his partner not to sweat it. Trusting fully in the ambush's success, he arrogantly notes the squad could only stir up trouble if they kept breathing. Suddenly, the wooden office door swings open abruptly and noisily. A soldier rushes in, reporting that the hired henchman just got back to the base, shocking the helper who overheard everything. Fixing his hair full of himself, the officer asks if they brought proof of the hit, making sure to note he wouldn't pay without seeing the job's result. Trembling head to toe, the messenger states the mission failed miserably, but warns the group has something crucial to report to the boss. Losing his patience with the team's incompetence, the captain frowns, demanding to know what excuse they cooked up this time to justify failing. Time jumps fast to the late afternoon 4 days later, with a sign jammed in the dirt marking the passing days. Sitting at the quiet camp, Gorls reflects that a lot of time has passed, and there has been zero sign that the mercenaries are hunting the tribe. The leader figures that if the squad took the truce deal, the white flag must be at the agreed spot, deciding to head out and check personally. Passing through the stone hall, he watches the little goblin girl easily calling the human sister, totally attached to the young woman. The warrior tells Heian he is stepping out for a bit, and orders her to stop teaching the human language to the kid immediately. Then Archer Meave comes running desperately through the dark tunnel, totally wiped out. Panting and rushed, she waves frantically while screaming her partner's name at the top of her lungs. Trying to catch her breath after the run, the warrior focuses on her man and asks where he plans on going at this time of night. The night rolls on calmly in the forest, lit only by a crescent moon glowing in the dark sky. Gorl sneaks through the trees, hoping to spot a white flag soon. The small tactician reflects that this signal is the only guarantee to avoid a head-on clash with the mercenaries. Just up ahead, he finally spots the fabric tied to a spear jammed in the dirt. However, a sketchy noise grabs the warrior's attention, making him narrow his eyes suspiciously. Out of the shadows under a light drizzle, a squad of armed men steps out, blocking the monster's path. Hyped by the find, the guys cheer for tracking down the exact target they were looking for. Glaring at the invaders, Gorls demands to know who these nosy humans are. Being up front, the men reveal they are from the 13th Guard Unit and will score 5 silver coins for the capture. Drawing his sword, one of the thugs warns they are just going to mess up the creature's arms and legs to make carrying him easier. With that, the human squad charges furiously, calling the tactician trash. The clan leader pulls his dagger with a dead serious look to handle the issue. Aiming for the numbers advantage, one of the guards attacks with a spear, trying to run the monster through. With insane agility, Gorls dodges the strike, sliding right under the enemy's weapon. Giving zero chance to defend, the warrior counters the attack swiftly and relentlessly. The blade slices the air in a precise move, hitting the opponent dead on. Zipping past the enemy, the small monster shows off vastly superior combat skills. The human's body drops to the ground, totally neutralized by the force of the hit. Right after, another guard steps up, hoisting a heavy hammer to crush the target. Highly confident, the man smiles, noting that Goblin sure knows how to fight. Swinging the weapon hard, the henchman tells the creature to lie down and surrender already. Sliding through the brush, Gorls dodges the heavy strike effortlessly. Through a perfect opening, the warrior lands a quick slash, taking out the threat instantly. Howling in pain, the man drops to his knees, gripping the severe wound. The group's masked leader goes into a panic as he sees the monster pop up right in front of him out of thin air. Without hesitating, the tactician hits the squad commander with a clean, perfectly aimed strike. The human steps back, coughing non-stop, entirely dazed by the sudden. Unable to keep fighting, the masked guy collapses on the ground, beaten and panting. Gorls just watches the fallen target, proving total control over the situation. Scared by the massacre, the last guards fall back, realizing he is not a regular monster. Consumed by the fear of that strength, the survivors bolt, running deep into the darkness. Tired, the goblin leader wipes his weapon down, finding this whole situation incredibly annoying. He walks over to the white flag and laments that, despite the promise being kept, there was an ambush waiting for him. At that moment, a fast projectile cuts the wind and jams into the ground right by his feet. Startled by the sound, the warrior tries to step back fast to take cover. But a flaming arrow hits his leg squarely before he can get away. Seized by pain, Gorls rips the weapon out of his own body with a brutal yank. Immediately, another pinpoint shot nails the tactician's shoulder, dropping him to the dirt floor. Fallen, he holds the new wound, feeling the heavy impact of the sneak attack. Through the night fog, the outline of a human archer shows up with her bow ready. The monster's eyes widen, shocked to recognize who is running that attack. With her weapon aimed, mercenary Hongyom claims the situation should have been handled like this from the start. Completely confused, the goblin tries to figure out how the Ember Hunters got to this point after the deal. The girl keeps up her reasoning, claiming that if they had attacked sooner, there wouldn't be any extra trouble. Without mercy, the human fires another fast arrow at the small warrior on the ground. The sound of solid footsteps echoes as someone holds up a weapon, blocking the attack's path. The clan leader looks up, entirely surprised by the unexpected backup. Swinging her spear with agility, Meve intercepts the enemy arrow, shielding her partner. The human archer steps back, spooked by the sudden arrival of that new creature. Standing tall and imposing, the goblin warrior glares at her rival while Gorls says her name. Determined, Meve declares loud and clear that she is there to protect her man at all costs. Overflowing with fury, the girl screams she won't let anyone hurt her loved one. Tension takes over the dark forest, with the clash escalating under the moonlight. Nearby, the rookie mage of the mercenary group tries to step back, spooked by the monster's power. Young Tisung sweats cold, unable to believe the difficulty level of that hunting mission. Taking an aggressive stance, Meve yells in the goblin language, making it clear she won't back down. Hongyom sizes up the situation with a furious look, noticing the little monster's defense is flawless. The scene flashes back 2 days, showing the wooden walls of a human facility. Inside a cell, heavy worn hands appear chained by iron cuffs. In a well-lit room, the mercenary archer and mage wait with super tense faces. The new guard captain walks into the room smiling, greeting the young Ember Hunters with massive mockery. Kim Hangyo laughs at the situation, asking if he should call them traitors to the nation now. Slapping the table, Hongyom stands up outraged and warns the officer he is accusing the wrong people. Full of resolve, the girl guarantees their team never made any kind of deal with monsters. Always sporting a cynical smile, the commander fires back, saying their old leader told a very different story. He recounts that the veteran took all the blame himself, swearing the kids had nothing to do with the alliance. The archer clenches her fists, shaking with rage, understanding perfectly that the old man sacrificed himself to save them. Spinning the keys on his finger, Hangul says he came to the room exactly to let the mercenary do. The metallic clink echoes through the room as the cuffs are finally unlocked and tossed on the floor. Relieved but cautious, Tisung asks what will happen to their leader now. The captain holds up an official document, revealing that is the paperwork going to the kingdom's higher-ups. Detailing the text, he explains the file accuses the veteran of helping the monster that took down the base's old captain. Consumed by hatred, Hongyom punches the wooden table with all her might, rejecting that absurd lie. In tears, she yells that this is exactly why they deny any involvement, while her friend tries to calm her down. Without dropping his arrogant act, the officer asks the girl to calm down and hear his proposal to the end. The captain holds the document tightly and notes that the paperwork accusing the veteran hasn't been sent to the kingdom's higher-ups yet. He continues his explanation, noticing the two kids keep harping on the fact that they are totally innocent in this mess. Dripping with cynicism, the officer asks what they think they need to do to save the old leader's skin. The mage and archer look surprised, while the commander answers bluntly that they need real proof. With the paper in hand, he demands conclusive evidence showing the group made no secret deal with the goblin. In a threatening tone, Kim Hanyul suggests bringing that monster's head would be enough to clear their names. Taking the deal seriously, Hangyom asks if defeating the creature will truly guarantee their partner's freedom. Satisfied with the reaction, the officer nods and warns he won't give them much time to get the job done. The scene cuts back to the dark forest, where the mercenary archer aims her bow, asking if the goblin warrior is the target's girlfriend. Consumed by rage, the human shoots a flaming arrow, swearing she will finish off the little green monster first. Totally surprised by the fast strike, Miev's eyes widen as she spots the incoming danger. Using all her agility, the clan warrior leaps through the trees, dodging a literal rain of fire projectiles. Right after landing on a branch, the goblin archer readies her own bow to return the favor in kind. Hiding behind a trunk, Hangyom grumbles in frustration, noticing the enemy's firing speed is way higher than hers. Sizing up the disadvantage, T-Sung warns his partner to be really careful, reminding her their target still has two more henchmen around. Brimming with confidence, Mieve tells her man not to worry because she had already signaled the tribe's squad before the fight even started. Confirming the warning, the human mage hears the loud blast of a horn echoing through the dense woods. Through the trees, one of the monsters raises his weapon, screaming the Crimson Dagger clan's name at the top of his lungs. A gigantic horde of small warriors charges furiously from the shadows, swearing to protect leader Gorals. The green-skinned mob rushes downhill, ready to wipe out any human crossing their path. Seeing that absurd amount of enemies, Hangyom loses her patience and asks if they really want to fight to the bitter end tonight of all nights. Before she could react, a magic attack is fired their way, blowing up midair. Wasting no time, T-Sung summons dark magic spheres to block the incoming enemy arrows point-blank. The human archer goes into a state of pure shock, realizing how massive and serious the ambush is. Slicing the wind, the tribe's two elite henchmen push forward with terrifying speed across the wet ground. The warrior duo closes in, gripping their daggers, ready to end the human team once and for all. Yanking his partner by the arm, the mage tells her they need to run out of there right now, while she tries to pull away to keep fighting. Losing his cool, the kid yells that if they both lose their lives here, no one else will be able to save the locked-up veteran. That harsh reality hits the girl hard, making her swallow her pride and agree to fall back to think up a better plan. Without looking back, the mercenary duo sprints desperately through the dark, escaping the monster-run territory. Cheering the invaders' retreat, the goblin horde raises their weapons, declaring the clan's absolute victory. Totally covered in blood, Gorals leans on his partner while she begs him to stay awake until they reach a safe spot. The scene cuts to an old stone tower lit by the moonlight, acting as the tribe's new hideout in the forest. Inside, the leader goes through hell trying to pull the arrowheads jammed in his battered body. Super worried, Mieve asks if he is okay, but the small tactician admits the pain is so bad he feels like passing out. Sweating cold, he groans in disappointment for not gaining any special pain resistance after turning into a monster. Walking across the room with something in her hands, the archer asks her man to hang tough just a little longer. With blurry vision, the warrior thinks about the Ember Hunters, surprised the team took things to such an extreme point. He stares at the floor feeling a tightness in his chest, because he truly wanted that squad to make it through this war alive. Breaking his train of thought, the little monster hands him a glass bottle, saying it's a special elixir made by the old shaman. Inspecting the golden liquid suspiciously, the tactician thinks it looks just like regular whiskey. Determined to stop hurting, he chugs the bottle, figuring anything that kills the pain will do the trick. In an uncontrollable reflex, the boss spits the drink everywhere, feeling an absolutely horrible taste slide down his throat. Coughing, he demands to know what that is, and his partner explains she just poured her grandpa's medicine into a spare bottle. Overcome by anger, the warrior shatters the glass in his bare hand, swearing he'll heal up fast to crush everyone who insulted his honor. Holding her injured partner's hands, the girl cries, begging him to tough out the pain of the wound. The tactician's mind drifts to a memory where the mercenary leader chatted with young T-Sung outside a cave. Being super humble, the veteran told the kid to forget about any kind of reward, since he had nothing valuable to offer at the time. Moved, the young man thanked them from the bottom of his heart for the rescue, swearing he would never forget the huge solid the group did for him. Amused by the situation, the old warrior simply said people ought to help each other out in tough spots like that. Snapping back to the present, the goblin leader inhales sharply, feeling the medicine's healing power act fast through his body. Leaning over him on the bed, Meave asks, totally hyped, if her beloved is finally awake. Checking his own bandages, the tactician sits up in bed, blown away by how well the shaman's healing elixir worked. Taking advantage of the closeness, the archer pulls her partner in, full of naughty intentions and longing. With a sweet look, she promises to take care of all his wounds in a very special way too. Not quite getting the hint, the small warrior simply asks what the girl is trying to do. The little monster gets even closer, almost pressing her face against his in a vibe of pure romance and tension. However, the tactician suddenly takes the lead, leaving the archer completely flushed and stuttering from embarrassment over the surprise move. Pulling his partner into a deep kiss, Gorls tells her to get closer, showing he is in charge. The mood heats up for real in the dark room as her shirt is slowly taken off, revealing all the pent-up passion. Totally surrendering to the moment, the archer pants with flushed cheeks from so much emotion. Gorls trails kisses down his partner's neck, while she sighs his name non-stop. Clothes are tossed onto the tower's stone floor, marking the end of any hesitation between the two. Lying on the rustic bed, Meave stares at her leader with a look full of desire and nerves. Showing a lot of care, the warrior lets her know he'll take it really easy since it's her first time. The girl nods silently, feeling her heart race with her beloved so close. The connection between the two finally happens, binding the leader and his most loyal partner for good. Overwhelmed by the feeling, the little monster pants, letting passion take over completely. Above her, the tactician keeps the pace with a focused look, totally absorbed in the moment. Reaching out, the archer sweetly asks for a really tight hug from her man. Granting the wish, he pulls his partner into a warm hug, sealing the couple's bond in the hideout. Overflowing with intensity, the leader calls out the warrior's name, confirming the tie between them is now unbreakable. The long night ends, giving way to a beautiful sunny sunrise over the vast forest mountains. Far away, a panting human stops in the brush, complaining he's totally lost on the right path. Suddenly, a brutal spear pierces the man's chest, while a furious voice in the shadows grumbles about the group getting lost just because the old guide got taken out. Leaning against a tree, the human soldier complains about the awful intel Captain Kim Hangul gave them, realizing this was no simple goblin hunt. In a moment of pure desperation, he attempts a sneak attack, jumping with his sword drawn. However, the strike doesn't go as planned and he ends up hitting the ground hard, letting out a groan of pain. The impact hurts the guy's forehead, leaving him completely dazed on the rough grass. Two tribe warriors approach the prey, remembering the leader's orders about a human who bailayed from the first clash. Trembling with fear, the guard sees the axe inches from his neck, as the monsters decide to pin him down. Taking charge, one of the warriors declares they are taking the prisoner straight to their boss. Soon after, the soldier is seen tied up and on his knees outside the stone tower, being treated like a total joke by the enemy gang. Cutting through the noise, Tactician Gorls steps up and grabs the injured human's attention. Archer Meave watches the scene sitting comfortably, while her partner handles the interrogation in an intimidating way. Without beating around the bush, the small leader warns he only spared the guy's life because he is still useful, threatening to end him if he refuses to cooperate. Giving the prisoner a light kick, the goblin asks with a sadistic tone if the message was clear so there are no doubts. He keeps his train of thought, pointing out the mercenaries wouldn't have run without a set direction, since they are trained fighters. The guard swallows hard, hearing the spot-on theory that there must be a secret meeting point nearby. Glaring at the human super intensely, Gorls demands to know the exact location of that hideout immediately. Totally cornered by the monsters, the lackey hesitates to rat out his own teammates. But the terror of losing his life takes over, and he starts spilling the forbidden intel. Utterly defeated by the psychological pressure, the guy confesses the address, handing over his own group's plan. The scene snaps quickly to an imposing wooden mansion, isolated in the middle of a heavy rainstorm. The hideout's heavy doors are pushed open slowly, creaking on old hinges. Inside, the tactician praises his assassin's flawless work, walking among the humans already taken down on the floor. Dripping with cynicism, the leader congratulates the tied-up human for proving his worth so efficiently. The guard goes into absolute panic seeing the pile of fallen comrades, while the monster thanks him for the help in tracking them all down at once. Amused by his despair, Gorls assures the guy his job isn't done there yet. Pointing his finger at the survivor, he orders the lackey to head back to the guard unit and spill exactly everything he witnessed in that massacre. Stunned by the monster's nerve, the human's eyes go wide, barely believing the order he just got. The guy's mind flashes back to the chaos of the invasion, remembering the screams of terror when the invaders found the hideout. During the mess, the human guards were completely cornered by the enemy gang from all sides. The outcome was total ruin for the group, leaving the platoon no chance whatsoever to defend themselves. Snapping the messenger back to reality, the goblin boss warns there is one more crucial message to drop off at the base. With a soft thud, the tactician tosses a stained amulet straight into the terrified human's shaking hands. Popping up like a shadow behind the guy's back, he explains in a dark tone that a specific person needs to receive this bloody memo. The shine of the dirty blade stands out as the goblin lists exactly who was part of that clash. The memory of the battle surfaces, showing the mercenary team trying to escape the relentless ambush. The leader whispers the warning, focused on making sure everyone knows the tragic fate each warrior met. Flashing back to the recent past, the mercenary archer is hit violently and tossed onto the wooden floor. Fallen and panting, the girl looks up, facing the absolute worst-case scenario. The goblin warrior's silhouette closes in on her with steady steps, showing zero mercy. The clash between them is fierce, with the mercenary trying to fend off the creature's quick strikes. Without hesitating, the monster pulls his own ultimate weapon to end the hunt. Trying to save herself on pure instinct, the girl forces a desperate counterattack mid-fight. An agonizing scream of fury echoes through the main hall during the heavy impact. The human's defense crumbles and a weapon is seen dropping to the floor, marking her crushing defeat. With a clean, lethal move, the monster settles the conflict for good, stating he wants to make sure the base knows exactly what went down there. Back at the interrogation, Gorls grabs the messenger's clothes tightly and asks in a threatening tone if he can handle this simple task. Far away, a rustic wooden sign marks the entrance to the tribe's main camp during a calm late afternoon. Human Heian walks through the group alongside the little girl, noticing the commotion and whispers from the members around them. Distracted by the vibe, the young woman's eyes widen, surprised by a sudden movement in the hall. Rushing past the spot, the tactical leader walks by, totally laser-focused on his own strategic goals. Spotting her savior's arrival, Heian awkwardly mentions he took quite a while getting back from the hunt. Hearing his own name, the warrior stops in his tracks and looks back, paying attention to her. Arriving right after, Archer Meave flashes a radiant smile of pure happiness at finding her man safe and sound. The system prisoner feels a bit out of place, watching the monster do it with a curious look. Already inside the hall, the imposing shaman Morksul answers the young leader's call and awaits the report. Kneeling as a sign of respect, Gorls asks for official permission to launch a full-scale assault against the human base. Lifting his head with pure resolve, the tactician swears that this time he will tear that fortress down once and for all. Worried about the rookie's health, the mystical entity asks if the injuries from the last battle have healed enough. Holding a steady posture, he assures that the shaman's elixir worked a miracle and won't be an issue for the grand invasion. Raising his hands calmly, the old man reminds him the boy is now the grand boss of the Crimson Dagger clan and no longer needs to ask for clearance. With a look full of emotion, the warrior counters, stating that even though he leads his own group, he will never forget his roots belong to the shaman's tribe. Being extremely humble, the tactician explains the visit is just a way to show the utmost respect for the old leader. Stroking his rustic beard, Morksul seems very touched and claims he perfectly understands the rookie's loyal feelings. Resting his hand on the solid stone, the mystical entity makes a final decision on the future of that looming war. With an imposing voice, the old man announces he will send an entire elite squad from his own tribe to back up the Crimson Dagger clan's invasion. Caught completely off guard by the generous offer, the tactician's eyes widen as he sees the magic user team emerge from the shadows right behind him. Speechless in the face of such respect, he bows until he touches the floor and genuinely thanks the Grand Master for the support. The story cuts straight to the stone prison inside the human fortress during the red glow of sunset. The veteran mercenary leader is escorted down the dark halls, his hands cuffed tightly by the guards. The old warrior's face shows deep exhaustion, but his posture remains unshaken even in the face of disgrace. Reaching the interrogation room, the corrupt captain greets the prisoner with a mocking smile, sitting comfortably. Looking the prisoner up and down, the officer says the veteran's famous swordsman title with pure disdain. Ignoring the cheap shot, the old man just asks if they brought him there to announce his official execution date. Oozing arrogance, the commander points his finger and suggests the prisoner open the small box on the table first. With a terrible gut feeling, the mercenary pulls the wooden box and slowly pops the lid under the enemy boss's cynical gaze. Seeing the gruesome contents inside, the experienced warrior's eyes widen in a state of pure terror and shock. The wooden box slips from the prisoner's shaking hands, and he drops to his knees on the interrogation room floor, totally in shock. The macabre contents spill across the table, revealing a severed finger alongside a stained arrowhead. Trembling non-stop and sweating cold, the veteran stares at that disturbing scene, demanding to know why that is there. The iron chains on his wrists rattle intensely as despair takes over his body. Raising his cuffed hands to his face, the old mercenary tries to muffle a cry of pain mixed with an agonizing sob. Watching the guy's misery, the captain calmly reports that the prisoner's friends were attacked by the talking goblin while resting at the tavern. Keeping the cynical tone, the officer asks if the veteran gets that his team was wiped out by the same creature that ended the former commander. Flashing a sadistic smile, the guard boss offers his troops official backup in case the great swordsman wants to seek revenge. Still looking down, the old warrior laments that the kids decided to follow his wishes, remembering he made a truce promise with the monster that shouldn't have been broken. Glaring at the captain with deep hatred, the mercenary connects the dots and furiously asks if the officer used him as bait to force the kids to hunt the goblin. Totally outraged by the cowardly setup, he screams, demanding the commander leave the kids alone immediately. Having no patience for the rebellion, the officer drops his act and yells for the guards to throw that useless old man back in the dungeon. Promptly, a guard grabs the prisoner forcefully from behind, telling the traitor to shut up and stop causing trouble. Then the experienced warrior grips the jailer's arm firmly, showing his patience has run out. With a fast, brutal move, the veteran flips the guard over his own shoulder, slamming the human onto the floor with a heavy impact. Jumping on the opening, the old man lands a massive punch on the fallen jailer, neutralizing the threat for good. The base captain steps back terrified, unable to believe the cuffed prisoner managed to turn the tables so fast. Panicking, the officer calls the mercenary crazy and orders the rest of the soldiers to attack with everything they have. Acting on pure instinct, the veteran draws the sword from the scabbard of the passed-out guard on the floor. The slash is fast and pinpoint, hitting the next advancing soldier and dropping him instantly. The lackey's body drops heavy on the stones, proving the legendary swordsman's skills are still sharp as ever. Cornered and shaking with fear, the captain stammers as he tries to back away from the enraged man. With the blade in hand and a deadly look, the old man warns he has some questions and advises the officer to answer with absolute honesty if he wants to live. The scene cuts to the dark forest, where a massive monster army marches silently under the moonlight and the cawing of crows. One of the night birds lands near the armed horde, marking the start of the imminent invasion. Taking the lead, the shaman squad leader reports that all magic troops have wrapped up their attack prep. Gorals praises the work and orders the team to wait for his signal, deciding to push ahead alone first to scan the fortress's defenses. Wasting no time, the little tactician uses his absurd agility to leap through the shadows toward the enemy base. During the stealthy dash, he stops dead upon noticing something very weird going on up ahead. Landing softly on the stone floor, the goblin warrior evaluates the chaotic scene he just stumbled upon. The tribe leader is totally confused by the sight, asking himself what on earth is happening there. The imposing human fortress is entirely engulfed in a massive fire, making the monster joke about whether the humans decided to host a barbecue. Then the goblin steps forward barefoot on the hot stone floor, surrounded by tall flames. A familiar voice echoes across the burning courtyard, welcoming him and noting the monster took longer than expected. Turning his head, Goral spots a lone figure standing in the middle of the fiery hell, surrounded by several bodies of defeated soldiers. The veteran calmly drinks from a canteen while the corrupt captain begs for mercy, kneeling and tied up right beside him. Finishing the gulp, the experienced swordsman lowers the container, showing terrifying calmness amidst the chaos. Staring at the small warrior, the mercenary reveals he was waiting for him to arrive, surprising the tactician with his boldness. With a look heavy with grief and fury, the old man asks if they don't have a massive score to settle with each other right now. The veteran's mind travels to painful memory, recalling the soft sound of water pouring into a wooden cup. The drink filled the rustic container in a moment of pure peace at the old camp. The canteen was left completely empty, marking the end of that temporary peace they shared. In the memory, the old warrior thanked his young apprentices for taking care of a man as stubborn as him. Looking at the smiling mage and archer, the leader confessed that meeting that squad was the greatest luck of his entire life. In a quiet goodbye tone, the veteran asked the students not to blame him if he checked out too soon, swearing he did the best he could for them. Outside the burning walls, the surviving soldiers scream desperately that the traitor escaped prison and order everyone to mount an offensive to catch him. Oblivious to the screaming, the goblin leader and the old swordsman keep staring each other down in the courtyard surrounded by fire and ruin. Decided on clearing things up, Gorals warns up front that he needs to make one point perfectly clear about the recent tragedy. The small tactician points out that the mercenaries themselves forced the situation to hit that extreme level. Hearing the vent, the veteran closes his eyes and simply nods, finally understanding the monster's side. The tribe leader is completely taken aback by the human's calmness, not expecting such a peaceful response. Explaining his group's action, the mercenary says the kids had no bad intentions and only attacked the clan in a desperate bid to save their own master's life. Confused by the reveal, Gorals demands the human explain properly what he means by that. Being straight up, the old man says the guard captain held him hostage and used his life to blackmail the team into hunting the goblin. Hearing the story, the tied-up officer shakes with fear as the veteran concludes they were all played like puppets. Consumed by anger, the tactician mutters that the whole war was sparked by a huge misunderstanding, but laments the damage is already totally irreversible. With a somber look, the human agrees with the creature, accepting that their tragic fate is already sealed. Drawing his heavy sword, the mercenary reveals he only waited for the monster to show up to ensure the goblin knew his team's good intentions before one of them lost their life. Also drawing his blades, Gorls emphasizes he tried to save the old man in the past, but won't forgive the group for trying to wipe out his tribe. Readying his combat stance, the veteran returns the threat, guaranteeing he will also never forgive the creature that spilled his kid's blood. Before kicking off the honor duel, the goblin leader states he needs to handle one last important detail. In an absurdly fast and relentless move, Gorls finishes the corrupt captain with a clean strike, offering the villain's fall as a tribute to the fallen kids. Watching justice be served, the experienced swordsman calmly asks if they can finally start the final showdown. The little tactician just holds his defensive stance in the middle of the fire, ready for the hardest fight of his new life. Without warning, the veteran charges the enemy at terrifying speed, proving exactly why he is a legend. The human unleashes a brutal vertical strike with his heavy sword, forcing the monster to cross his dual blades to block the impact. Feeling the crushing weight of the blow, the goblin warrior grits his teeth, trying to withstand the opponent's strength. The clash of weapons sparks a wave of bright embers that mix into the ruined courtyard's flames. With a focused, relentless glare, the old mercenary presses the blade, wanting to break the creature's defense at any cost. Cornered by the attack's absurd force, Gorls mentally admits he vastly underestimated the old man's power, concluding he should have brought the whole clan if he knew his true level. With an extreme effort, the tactician pushes the enemy's sword away and jumps back, trying to build a safe distance. But the swordsman gives not a single second of breathing room and charges, slicing the air with a devastating horizontal swing. On pure reflex, the tribe leader slides his body backward and manages to dodge the deadly blade by a fraction of a second. Seizing the opening, the veteran summons a blue magic aura into his weapon and unleashes a top-down strike at full power. The magic impact is so dense that the blade slides violently against the goblin's defenses, forcing the monster to step back so he doesn't get chopped in half. Feeling the attack's crushing force, the little tactician spits blood while trying to hold his ground. In a continuous motion, the veteran lands a clean strike that blasts the monster backward. Fallen to his knees on the stone floor, Gorls lets out a loud, intense laugh, completely ignoring the severe wound. He pants heavily, proving the battle is taking a massive toll on his body. Slow, heavy footsteps echo through the ruined courtyard, announcing the experienced swordsman's approach. Stopping right in front of the beaten warrior, the mercenary leader says he has one last curiosity before ending this. With a gloomy look, the human asks if the creature let the young apprentices go without feeling pain. Showing zero warmth, the goblin replies he usually gives back the exact same treatment he gets from others. The veteran looks down, consumed by grief, deeply mourning that tragic situation. Too weak to react anymore, Gorls hears the opponent decree he is going to put an end to his suffering right now. Totally cornered, the tribe leader curses quietly, realizing the situation spun out of control. Then a lone crow flies over the chaotic scene, letting out a loud caw through the smoke. The night bird watches the duo from above, signaling the imminent end of that bloody clash. Watching everything from afar, Archer Meave points her finger and decides it's time to step in. The clan's shamans agree with the order and begin casting a powerful spell, their hands glowing purple. Back in the courtyard, the experienced swordsman says goodbye and raises his weapon for the final blow. But before the blade hits the target, a dark spell intercepts the attack, shielding the fallen monster. Caught completely off guard by the magic barrier, the veteran steps back panting. Looking at the defense, Gorls realizes it's still not his time to meet his end. He raises his sword engulfed in the purple magic aura, summoning the Twilight Swordsman's special power. The mercenary leader breathes heavily, feeling the weight of that sudden plot twist. Sizing up the scene, the human admits he was reckless to think the fight was already won. Wasting no time, the little tactician charges furiously, calling the opponent out to restart the brawl. The clash resumes with a violent collision of blades, shooting sparks everywhere. Using all his agility, Gorls unleashes a relentless barrage of attacks, trying to break the enemy's stance. While fighting, the goblin notices his wound's pain has dropped drastically, suspecting it's the magic squad's doing. A mysterious healing energy wraps around his body, sealing the deepest cuts in the blink of an eye. The system panel confirms Moonlight Blessing was triggered, speeding up recovery and temporarily blocking any suffering. Pushing this absurd advantage, the tribe leader pressures the human with heavier and heavier strikes. He flashes a confident smile as he feels his own body get way lighter, overflowing with immense power. Right after another skill called Veil of Night kicks in, boosting the target's strength and speed even more. Watching the exchange of blows, the monster notes the veteran's exhaustion is finally starting to show. Focused on winning, Goral spots the openings in the experienced swordsman's defense perfectly. In a lethal, precise move, the tactician's blade tears through clothing and hits the human violently. Unable to block the quick counterattack, the old warrior takes a direct hit while the goblin slides through the shadows. The little leader breaks hard on the stone floor, staring at the result of his lightning-fast strike. On the human's back, a huge gash pours blood, marking the legend's imminent fall. Utterly defeated, the mercenary drops to his knees in the burning courtyard, letting his sword slip from his hands. The old man pants heavily, feeling his own life drain away along with whatever strength was left. Walking slowly across the hot floor, the winner approaches the beaten opponent. Standing behind the human, Gorals reiterates he won't ask for forgiveness for what he had to do there. Even so, the monster decides to be totally honest in the final moments of that tragedy. He laments that fate put the mercenary team in his crosshairs. The system plays an alert sound, confirming the high-level target was eliminated. Immediately, the holographic window notifies that the experience quota was met, and the evolution quest is complete. Ignoring the game's reward, the tactician confesses the Ember Hunters were truly good people. Keeping a respectful tone, he admits it from the bottom of his heart as smoke rises around the dew. The fallen human hears the monster thank him for saving him in the past. Covering his face overcome with emotion, Gorals cries, offering a sincere apology, while the magic light of evolution begins to shine, announcing his transformation into a superior species.